This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Juma in the Sabi Sands, where you can see it's blustery, it's a little bit windy, it's overcast, and while we've been experiencing a little bit of rain, we've got Jamie Patterson in the tent, and while my name is Steve, I'm joined on camera by Senzo Mkees. Welcome to the morning drive. It is a beautiful morning. I've got my jacket on. The rain was just soft and pitter-pattering through earlier, but it's now gone. It's because Jamie's gone into the tent. That's why the rain has gone. But we've got our roof on, and we are very excited to be out this morning. I can smell buffalo in the air. All around us are tracks and dung on the road. You can see little bits of dung all over here and tracks. There was a herd of buffalo at the dam last night, and the Evoca male apparently was seen just down at about 1:30. So we're going to see. He can't help it. He's going to follow those buffalo. He just can't help himself. The Evoca male is a big male lion, if you're not familiar. And anyway, we would love to hear from you. #SafariLive. Send through your questions or comments or drop them on the YouTube chat stream. For now, we're just going to scratch around here. The buffalo seem to have gone in that direction, down towards Philemon's Dip, so that might be a good place to start. So we'll just quickly go have a look down the road here towards the watering hole. Maybe a male lion is sitting right there, and then from there we're going to cut back, see if we can find these buffalo. Are you on board? Very good. Exciting stuff. On a nice cool morning like this, we might actually get to see the male lion doing something other than just lying flat. He was doing nothing yesterday. Absolutely nothing. Just got to have a look. Huge amounts of tracks on the road here. A very good chance that they followed. The lion might have followed them. So let me just go back here towards the watering hole. You can see how dark it is. I've got my spotlight out. Because it's overcast, it's normally actually quite light at this time of day. Normally quite light. But with the overcast conditions, it is very, very dark. Okay. Okay, well, we're going to head on down towards the watering hole. Hopefully we don't blind any of these poor impala up ahead. But while we do so, as I said so, Jamie is in the tent with Craig.
All right, so while Steve's goes to check the various water holes, a very good morning to all of you. My name is Jamie, and this morning Craig is on camera with me, doing every cameraman's favorite job, which is being limited to the tent. There's a very good chance that we could actually have gone walking this morning, but when I got up and when I drove here, it was pouring with soaking rain, and I think it's going to keep coming back. So rather than you missing out on a little bit of the show while we come running back inside to set up the tent, I've decided that this is where we're going to be for the morning. I was quite looking forward to the walk. I'm quite sad. Every time I try and walk, something happens. Either it's gremlins or something happens with the weather, whatever it may be. We are now in the tent. Lauren is here with us, but she's hiding in the background. I just thought I'd mention her in case she somehow pops in a little bit. Now, you will notice that I am wearing, admittedly, an exceedingly tight white armband, which, believe it or not, is sort of going to be the theme for this morning's tent, so that we can get questions really rolling and get a very good conversation going. Why am I wearing this? Well, first of all, the reason it's so tight is that Steph seriously underestimated how massive my biceps are. So it's incredibly tight and probably going to cut off the circulation. So if my fingers start turning blue on my left hand, please just let me know. Why am I wearing it? Because from now on, every time we go out on bushwalk, we will be wearing a white armband. And we will be doing that so that we can declare ourselves to the anti-poaching teams of the area as friends, not foe. Now, that is a very, very sad state of affairs that we happen to be in, that even in our home out here in the wilds of South Africa, we have to concern ourselves with the fact that we have to make it clear that our intentions are not to go out and either search for information on rhinoceros or actually actively poach them, or assist the poaching teams in getting from A to B within the reserve. And there are multiple entry points. It's obviously a massive area that we live in, and so it becomes an incredibly complex thing to help to look after the rhino and to keep them safe. So in future, when you see us out in bushwalk, we will be wearing white armbands to declare ourselves a part of an official walk team and not an unofficial one. Now, what that means is that this morning we're going to be talking about all things conservation. That means I'm not just talking about rhino, we'll talk about all sorts of things that are involved in the conservation of an area. You can send through your questions on that topic on #SafariLive on Twitter, and you can do that in the YouTube comments chat stream. And that's how we're going to get our conversation going for the morning. Speaking of someone who knows how to get a conversation going, let us bounce across onto the back of the vehicle with Sydney to find out what entertainment he has planned for you this morning.
What a great morning. This is Sydney Fumurani Mikosi, and most of all, welcome to the beginning of the morning safari. My plan this morning is quite very easy. I will be looking for the animals somewhere around Vubu, towards the Buffalo Cut line, Cheetah Cut line, which is much more towards the northern side. And also, I will visit the eastern side, Chitwa area, for in case if you need my attention when I'm looking for these animals and talking about these animals, you can follow us on Twitter, #SafariLive. You can also follow us on YouTube chat stream. So the weather this morning is perfect for the animal movements. We might be lucky, specifically the cats. The cats don't like it when it's too hot, so they like it when it's nice and chilly like now. So it's overcast and the wind blowing here is perfect. It's drizzling a little bit, which might affect my trekking this morning because the rain, this little bit of precipitation, it kills all the tracks on the ground. I haven't been in this area for a while now. I am going to pass the Galago Pan. Animals are not really going to the dams such as the Galago Pan anymore. Water is just everywhere. And there's quite a lot of water by these small potholes here and small areas provided by the elephants during the dry season. Water was not provided by the elephant in those areas. Elephants dug the small holes and got broadened by the warthogs. So now let's quickly go to Steve, who is at the dam at the moment.
Welcome back, everybody. Well, we've come down to Vuetela watering hole, and well, it's so nice to see so much water down here from the rains, of course. So this is in fact the drainage catchment area of the Umulwati drainage system, and it was so nice to see all the water. You can probably hear the oxpeckers above my head. That is the oxpeckers. Now, Lauren had a huge herd of buffalo around this watering hole last night at the end of show. And well, as I said, we found their tracks just before. I just came down here to have a look to see maybe we'd find a lion sitting down. But what we're going to do is we're going to go back the way we came, just a bit of a loop around the second road and see if we can find these buffalo. Because, well, quite often what will happen is the lions will follow them. It's a good chance they might still be on the property. What buffalo will do is they'll normally drink twice a day, and in the evening they'll drink and then lie down all around. And not far from where we are here, there was dung, there was lying down marks, there was urine from where the buffalo had obviously drunk, moved a little bit away, and then they ruminated and spent some time bedding down right here. Maybe the male lion came onto the scene and they all moved off, or maybe they just got up and moved off. We're going to go follow them and see if we can find them. Bearing in mind, buffalo, a big herd, are the easiest animals to track because you could just drive along and smell and you'll be able to keep up with them. They are an organic movement of animals, really. That's all that you can see and smell is dung, tracks. And, well, as the light starts to build up down here in Djuma, as we get on the trail of these buffalo, hopefully we'll find some lions. But in the darkness of the Masai Mara, let's go say good morning to Isaac.
Well, good morning, everyone. It is a rather cold morning for us here. My name is Isaac Rotich, and with me is Bungei, the magic man behind everything you see. It's quite cool, still dark. I'm using my spotlight to try and find you something. Temperatures here are about 16 degrees Celsius and about 61 degrees Fahrenheit. There was a lot going on last night, and there was lots of noises going on around camp. We think the Olololo Pride is right by camp, so I'm gonna bother looking for them because I know they killed something. I could hear hyenas. There's a thick bush and a gully that we can go to, and that's why I have come down here, and I'm hoping to find you something before sunrise. Otherwise, allow me to continue looking, and I hope you're ready for this morning's game drive. It rained all night, but it looks very clear. James yesterday got really wet coming back to camp. I feel sorry for him. I'm sure right now he's having a good morning sleep, if he's not in the studio. We're just gonna have a quick look at the den site of the female with the 3 cubs, and then maybe head on towards the river and see what we can find you down there. Yeah, I'm gonna head down here, see what I can find, and while I'm doing that, we'll link you back to James in the tent. I don't know what he's doing.
All right, so all the way from the Masai Mara back to the tent in Djuma, where, as I mentioned, we're discussing things conservation related. We're not going to stick just to that. When it gets a little bit lighter, we're going to go out, we're going to look at the elephant skull, because I'm itching to get my hands on it and then wash them afterwards. I'm very, very excited. Tristan said it is very cool and that you can even see the new set of teeth forming, so I'm quite excited about that. But for now, and I've completely forgotten who the question was from, we have a question about whether or not there have been any recent poaching incidents. Yes, there have. I'm not going to tell you where specifically, but there have been recent poaching. Cool Breeze, that's it, Cool Breeze, sorry, Cool Breeze. There have, but remember that there's a recent poaching incident every couple of hours in South Africa. So every couple of hours a rhinoceros is killed. The reason that the problem is so intense in South Africa is because we have the highest rhino population within Africa. We have more rhinos, we have more concentration of rhinos, and as a result, we have a bigger problem with poaching. It's much easier to find rhinos out here than it is anywhere else. So that is why we have such a massive issue, and it is a huge amount of money that goes into protecting these animals. And what's sad about that is that all of the closed private reserves, which are an essential part of conservation in South Africa, it's one of the ways in which the natural range of animals is expanding. What that means is that these little reserves actually can't afford to pay to keep their rhinos safe, and therefore they're selling their rhinos off as a result. Sometimes they're even giving their rhinos away to somewhere where they might be better protected. And many years ago, I was involved in the relocation of a male rhino. He was beautiful. He was the biggest rhino I've ever seen. And the unfortunate reality of that situation was that when we darted him, we walked him to the crate, and he collapsed and he didn't get up. And it took us many hours of desperately trying to get him to his feet, and it didn't work, and he was eventually put down. So those are the realities of trying to anesthetize or move an animal. It's a risk that you have to take, and a balance as to whether or not it's actually worth it for the animal's safety. So it really is a terrible tragedy. We're not going to be too negative about it. There's certainly a great deal of hope within this issue. Nothing, Gary, nothing. The truth is, nothing stops them from imitating this. The only thing that we can hope is that we stay on top of the issue. So nothing will stop them from mimicking this. I'm going to put it away as a result. It is an unfortunate reality that there's nothing to stop them from mimicking it. It's just a matter of staying one step ahead of the game. And it's an arms race, essentially. It's a matter of getting information. It's a matter of understanding the root source of the problem rather than trying to stop a poacher. Because, yes, of course, stopping poachers is essential, but it doesn't solve your issue. Because for every poacher that there are plenty more waiting to take his place. And what we're going to talk about as well is, and you're not going to like me for this, is a little bit of compassion and a little bit of empathy where it's concerned, which isn't a popular thought and it isn't a popular feeling, but it's one that's essential in going towards understanding why people do what they do and how we can solve that problem. And I don't have the answers. James, you want to know if the anti-poaching team is paying attention to black rhino. Look, I'm not going to go into the full details of the anti-poaching operations within the Sabi Sand, first of all, because I don't know, and secondly, because I wouldn't tell you even if I did, but yes, of course. I mean, both species of rhino will be protected as much as possible. Black rhino obviously slightly more difficult to find, certainly on Djuma. They make an appearance every now and again. We see tracks every now and again. Sometimes we see a marking of an old midden. I'm not going to tell you where that midden is, but there is a midden within Djuma. And I personally haven't seen one on Djuma. I've seen only the signs of them. But yes, certainly they fall under the spectrum and the heading of rhino that we look after and that we try to protect. Difference, of course, between white and black rhino, very easy. It's very, very easy. It's a very simple one to get. It's got nothing to do with color, as most of you know. Hook-lipped rhinoceros is the one referred to as the black rhinoceros. It's because it's a browser. It's got a point to the top lip that it uses to pluck off leaves, where the white rhinoceros has a wide mouth because it's a grazer. Its head's held lower. It's got a bigger shoulder hump in order to support the weight of its head held down, where the black rhinoceros holds its head up. Ears slightly different shape. Black rhino have rounder ears. White rhino have more elongated ears. And of course, white rhino are considerably larger than the black rhino species or subspecies that are seen throughout Africa. Black rhino, of course, the more endangered of the two species. It's also the most recently evolved. Now, while we sit here and discuss all things conservation, Steve is out doing the real work and finding you some lions. I wonder if he's had any further leads.
Well, what a very long topic that is. A very sad one indeed. Just looking at some very fresh tracks, in fact. Well, the rhino walking there on top of these buffalo. So we found the male lion's tracks heading directly towards Vuetelapan. So here we go. You can see that splatter over there. This is the telltale sign. Sorry about the pole, folks. We do have the roof on in case of rain. That is the telltale sign of the buffalo, and there are tracks all around it. They move as a huge unit of animals. And while we found one male lion track heading back in the direction the buffalo going. So what are we going to do? Because it's going to be much easier to try and find these guys than to find the lion. And then from there, once we find them, we'll move around and see if we can find and evoke a male. The tracks were back there, but I'm going to see if we can keep moving on to try catch up with him. Oh, wow, there we go. There's the lion track. Right next to my head. I wonder if you can see that sense just down over here. I'm going to jump out, see if Senzo can get this one. There is his track. Is that all right? Or was my car in the way? That's good. Okay, so here this male lion is following these buffalo. Here you can see his pads. And there are the toes over there. It's not the clearest of tracks, but in the light, in the early dawn, it's not that easy to see tracks. But the buffalo, very characteristic, and this guy is following them. So let's go see if we can find him, shall we? They can't help themselves, folks. Like I said, if any of you have ever grown up on a milking yard, you'll know what the smell of cattle is like, and that's what buffalo smell like, and it's quite easy to follow them just by smell. Well, anyway, let's quickly go up to the Masai Mara where Isaac has found... Ooh. We're going to cancel that. We were going to go up to the Masai Mara, but that's been cancelled, so let's continue on. There's the lion. He's on top. What's good to see here about freshness, folks? A lot of people ask about freshness, and you want to know what is fresh, how do you know it's fresh? And over my shoulder here, you can first of all see the pile of dung over there. We know that's fresh, but over here is a rhino track. And then further down, keep coming, there we go, there's the lion track. Now, you are not going to find lion tracks if buffalo herd is walked through, because essentially there's a lot of buffalo, and with the buffalo the tracks will disappear. It's something that was actually very common in the bush war in Zimbabwe, that, for example, the terrorists that they were called, or the rebels, whatever you'd like to call them, if ever they tried to escape the army, the locals would basically take their cattle and follow them afterwards to basically eliminate any tracks on the ground, because to try and track someone after a herd of cattle or buffaloes move through the area is very hard. Minamu, you want to know if a lion could take down a buffalo on its own? Well, they're designed to. They're designed to take down buffalo. Obviously, a lion on its own, a big male, would try and choose an easy target, maybe a female or maybe even a youngster. But to take down a big male buffalo is a hard task. It's not something that is very easily done, and that's the reason why lions occur in prides. Now, I just want to try and figure out where they all disappeared to there. They probably went through that side. We'll just go have a look over here. That's kind of the general direction I thought they would go, or they followed that drainage line. You won't miss them if they cross the road. There's the rhino tracks. So definitely lions can take down a buffalo, but it's a very dangerous animal to try and tackle on your own. So you try and implore the rest of the pride, at least a couple of males. No doubt the 3 Avoca males are quite good at killing buffalo on their own as a group, but to do it on your own, I mean, you're looking at about 500 pounds at the most for a, there we go, there's the buffalo running. They're running tracks over here. Oh, is that not, yes it is. No, there's a rhino running. Why was the rhino running? So the tracks, sorry, not the tracks. So a buffalo can weigh close up to about 2,000 pounds, 1,800 pounds. Big male lion, as big as they get, 500. It's just a really big animal to take down. So it's not impossible. Okay, here we go. The buffalo are back on the track here, heading along where we are on Philemon's cut line right now. There's a really good chance the direction these guys are going is straight through there towards Treehouse Dam. So we'll quickly zoom around there, see if we can find them. But in the meantime, Sidders is already up in the northeast. He's at Bivazuk.
So I've got a very beautiful male waterbuck there at the moment. Something has just happened while you were away. There was a female next to that waterbuck, and he was just now checking the status of ostrus on that female. So we saw him doing what is called a flamen. He was sniffing the genitals of the females in order to get the signals as to whether this female is ready for mating yet or not. So the male waterbucks, they carry horns. The females don't carry horns. So if you look at this waterbuck, so you will see that both of them are very much close to the waterhole. The name waterbuck derived from the fact that these animals prefers to feed on a distance of about 2 kilometers approximately away from the waterholes. Why do they like to eat near the waterholes? Because here by the banks, here by the surrounding of the waterholes, there is quite a lot of green grasses due to quite a lot of moisture. Waterbucks, they have got quite a lot of urine output, and because of that, they need quite a lot of proteins from these grasses. And sometimes when threatened, for safety reasons, they do go straight into the waterholes. So if you look at the hairs on the waterbuck, it's very much fluffy, and these hairs, they are hollow. So it's the hairs which can be able to absorb water. But the waterbuck is too well gifted. He's got a kind of a gland called a subcutaneous gland. This gland, he uses it as a grease in order to serve as a waterproof when they go into the water. Coming out, they look dry. So you can see now it's time for him to drink. So the male waterbucks are territorial. but you will never see them demarcating their territory. How they communicate about the territorial status, everything is done through a very distinctive smell. They believe that the subcutaneous glands they use for waterproof produce a lot of smell, which can be able to communicate with other males in the area about their territorial status. So when he's drinking there, you can see he's got a white beep on the neck. So puma, the male kudus, we haven't seen them in a while. Yes, animals such as kudus, they are just like impalas. They do also form what is called bachelor heads. And bachelor heads by these animals, mostly you will find them taking place during the non-breeding season. So when you don't see the kudus, mostly is when they are on bachelor head. You will see them feeding together as a group of males, old males together with the young males, some which have not started breeding yet. But by the breeding head, you will also see some of the young males as well. So now you can see when the water bug is looking at that side, it doesn't look like it's the same animal. At the back, you can see the round, beautiful ring there when he's waving the tail. So that helps the water bugs a lot in order to communicate. When they are moving away, this can serve as a good follow me sign. So the ears are moving all the time. Oh, the impalas are also arriving there. You can see 2 impalas are coming in. So these are the kind of groups. Tony, I have never seen the water bugs migrating, and if you come to the areas such as Juma here in Kruger National Park, unfortunately our reserves and parks, they are closed, meaning that they are fenced, and because of that it does restrict the normal behavior of these animals. Some of them, animals that we see normally during migration in Masai Mara, such as wildebeest, during the migratory period, you will see them leaving their territories in the same game reserve, moving around according to the availability of food, which gives you a sign that these animals, when there's a shortage of food, they know what to do. It's just that here they are closed in. So you can see that female is right staring at the impalas. Oh, there's also another water bug coming. So you can see that is the one who is now trying to scare the impalas. When I was talking about the water bug, I also touched something to do with the bachelor head when the impalas were coming, and also talking about the kudus. So look at those impalas now. They're all males, all carrying horns. This is what I meant when referring to the term bachelor. So you can see those impalas, they want to challenge each other. So I saw how that one turned. Let's look at that. So that one is moving now. So by January is when you'll see impala starting to chase each other, making noises such as that is something which is called ratting. Ratting, mostly you will hear during the May. During the May month is when impalas are challenging each other for territorial reason. It's when some are trying to establish their breeding families or breeding herds. So they test each other's strength by now in January. All the way towards March, they will be chasing each other and making noises. You can see there now it's happening. So the animals, unfortunately, they've got to eat and also drink from some of the dirty waters. We have seen male predators such as the lions and leopards. They also drink just by the water holes. That's just by the potholes. By the big dams as well, they do drink. Yes, some of the animals, they do get sick from drinking water from the potholes. So it's just that animals don't have same kind of diseases. Diseases such as the diseases such as rabies. Sometimes when animals are sharing water at the same time, very close, whereby they can be able to eat each other's salivas, they can be able to transmit those kind of diseases. But the chances are very much low when animals are drinking from the potholes to get a lot of diseases. Tapeworms is one of the good example of some of the parasites which can be inherited from drinking from the water holes, because if these small water holes has got tapeworms or they're contaminated, the animal drinking. So you can see now that by the very same water hole, we have got two different, we've got the three different species. We saw the impala, we saw the waterbuck, now we have got the hippopotamus. So this dam was empty not a long time ago, but now because of rains, we do have a lot of water. So the hippopotamus are amongst those very potential dangerous animals, especially when they are outside these water holes. They can be very dangerous. So the hippo, which is on the left, by looking at him, he looks like this is a scuba Steve. So the one on the right, that one is the first time I'm seeing him coming to join here. So if this is Scuba Steve, at least he's got a companion, because most of the time he spends time here all by himself. Sometimes you will see him outside the water for long periods, far away from these water holes as well. So this hippopotamus must be very much excited by now, because the grasses has recovered. Hippopotamus So the hippopotamus, this kind of animals are herbivores. So they've got to go out and look for food from long distances. So now, while waiting to see what is going to happen here between the hippos, the waterbucks, and the impalas, let's cross over to Isaac by the Masai Mara.
Here we are, still in the Masai Mara. It's rather hard driving here this morning. I'm dancing all over. These soils here, the black cotton soil, doesn't take in water that well. And so you have to be very extra careful where you're driving, because it's very easy to get stuck. All the animals, I think, are avoiding these areas because they're very wet. And hoofed animals do get what we call foot rot when they stay in water for, in wet areas for very long. So I think, they are avoiding these areas. But I'm still, hoping to find something for you. On my right here, there is a beautiful herd of elephants. I don't know if you can see them. It is our first animal of the day. This looks like a very spread out herd of elephants. We're not very far from the river. I've come quite a long way from camp, and I'm headed towards the river, but my aim is to stay in the middle, in between the river and the escarpment, and see what we can find for you. These guys are still busy. They love it, when it's like this, because elephants, like I told you before and again, they are water dependent. They need water. And so when situations are like this, the grass is soft, it's really nice. They need, elephants eat about, 5% almost of the body weight every day. We call that a teapot, when they raise their trunks like that, is to check the wind from up there. And, 5% of their body weight. The reason is they have very poor digestive system, that. I'm sure she can hear me. See that? Hello, good morning. It's me again. Beautiful. It's not sunrise here, so we're still on infrared a little bit, and with the help of a bit of light, so you won't see the real colors. Look at that very angular forehead. That is typical for females. It's not always the case, but it's very typical with most females. You can tell that it's still misty at the back there. It was very misty when we started, but it's clearing nice and slowly. The other guy to the right is also doing this here. Yeah, he was checking us out. I don't know if we can go to color. Not yet. Bungay tells me still no light here. The trees behind there are Oleo africana, or olive trees. These olive trees here produce seeds, but not edible to humans. It's a hardwood. The Maasai people use it to make, clubs. We call them rungus. And the little part in between two spears is made from that tree. He's a little guy, no tusks yet. I think he's starting to feed, so he's mastering how to use the trunk, which is a technique they are born without. But in the first 2 months, they start developing onwards, becoming stronger as they age. It becomes a very important tools towards, once they mature, because it is a hand, it's a snorkel, it is used for everything. So it's a very essential part of an elephant. If they were to lose it, where sometimes they lose them to poaching, then they would starve to death because they can't reach down to feed. Most of the snares that catch the elephant trunks are not intended for the elephants. They are intended for smaller animals, and so they end up catching the trunk and they lose them. While I continue looking for something for you, I'm gonna go down to Steve, who's found some beautiful lion tracks. I hope he finds lions for you. While I continue on my journey to see what I can find.
Well, we have managed to track the buffalo as well as the Avoca male. Here we've got his track right here in the sand, and he's heading west. He's crossed, this is Gowrie, Maine, our southernmost boundary, so he's crossed southwest away from Djuma, and just over there, about 40 meters, I can actually see the buffalo dung that's crossed the road. He's been following them all the way down. They didn't go to Treehouse Watering Hole. They kind of cut a little bit more west, but have come straight out again. I have no doubt that he's been chasing them. They've been moving and moving and moving. But by looking at his track here, you can see it's quite clean, actually, and that's because this happened before the rain. The little spatterings of rain we had happened, I don't know what time. It was raining a little bit this morning when we came out, and I'm not sure if you can clearly see this over here, but this is where hyenas run, and I'll demonstrate with my hand. Can you see how clean this is? This matches the area around, and if I do this, it's not doing very much, but these hyena were running while it was raining. We left a little bit more of a wet mark on the ground. So I believe the Avoca male was seen around Voyatella, the dam cam, at 1:30ish. So there's a good chance from about 1:30 to about maybe 3, this process we've been following took place, and those buffalo have exited. Well, that's what they do. The lions will follow, because that is their favorite source of food. But I think it's very hard for one male lion to hunt buffalo when they're in a herd, because of the unit that they have, because of how they move around and how cohesive they are, and they're very difficult indeed. So anyway, at least we know where he's gone. We're going to turn around and go back into Djuma and go and have a look and see what else we can find. It's just myself and Sydney out in Djuma this morning, it seems. So we're going to have a wonderful morning. Please, if you have any questions or comments, send them through #SafariLive. Sorry we weren't able to find you the buffalo or the Avoca male, but at least we know where they are. Well, where they've gone to, or should I say where they aren't, which is on our property. But it's a very common route, this one, Shabamu, straight out. Tingana has done this many times. This is kind of the furthest east Hukumuri tends to come. He comes in on this route. I remember that time when Brent had him on foot. Hukumuri was just up here. Those of you who maybe don't remember, was when Brent came and offered me a little bit of the impala, or I think it might have been a kudu. He brought some of the liver for me to try. It was probably the highlight of my year last year. Only joking. Who knows what we might find? We might get the little chief, we might get Tingana. But it is a lovely morning to be out and about nonetheless. So we'd love to hear from you. And while we go along, we're just coming down the road. We'll get to Treehouse Watering Hole in a little bit. Who knows what might be sleeping there. But in the meantime, let's go back to Jamie in the comfort of the tent.
Alrighty, well, Steve goes off searching and following the lion tracks. I went to go and investigate a mysterious noise over there. It's a sort of squealing baby sound that I suspect might have been a scrub hare, but it was quite hilarious because while I was investigating it, something else came to investigate. I think most of you can guess what that would be. A spotted hyena came racing across quarantine clearings, which is the open area outside of our camp, and then started running a sort of parallel to us. It then realized that Lauren and Craig were at the tent and that they were talking slightly, so it stopped and it stared at them. But what it didn't realize was I was standing from sort of here to almost the tree away. So I stood and watched it for ages as it stood listening to Craig and to Lauren before it all of a sudden realized I was there and retreated at high speed with its bottom trying to overtake its legs. It was ridiculous. It was very, very funny. Right, Sydney's been talking about fences and the threat that they pose to animals' movements. We're in this massive area. We're in an area that is the size of some small countries. We're in an area that is bigger than some small countries, that stretches all the way from right down south to up to the Mozambican border. We're in the Greater Kruger National Park, which includes all sorts of areas like the Timbavati, the Klaseri, Manyeleti, and of course the Sabi Sand itself, without any fences in between. But the truth is that the entire outside of that massive area is fenced. It's the way in which South Africa approaches looking after its conservation areas. Complete contrast to that of the Masai Mara, where they don't have any fences at all, and the animals are free to come and go as they please. And a surprising lack of harm comes to most of those animals these days in those areas. It's actually quite astounding how well adapted people are to live with the presence of wild animals each and every single day. Lions and so on, of course, very high profile, less so for spotted hyena, which of course constantly come into contact with people because they're so intelligent and are not well received. Michael, are there any active lion conservation projects? Yes, absolutely. There are plenty around. Panthera is the big research organization slash conservation effort that goes into looking after lions throughout Africa. They probably got the widest reach in terms of where they are, but there's so many. There's the Mara Predator Program. Within these sorts of areas, there are multiple different projects that go about looking after lions. Another unpopular thing I'm going to say, but I think most of you are quite comfortable with this concept now, I do not include breeding programs within the conservation heading. A breeding program creates an environment for tourists to come and look at pretty little lions in cages, and that applies to almost anything else. Most of the purported conservation breeding programs are there so that the cubs can be cuddled by people who pay immense amount of money to do that, and then when they grow up they're no longer wanted. What do you do with a half-tame lion? You can't release it into the wild, it's going to eat someone. So as you know, what happens from there is they go into canned hunting. What canned hunting is basically you've got a tame lion. I mean, it's revolting when you think about it. You've got a tamed lion, and they get a carcass put out for them, and bang, That's the end of the line, and some hunter somewhere feels very good about himself that he managed to shoot something that was basically made into a pet. And then the cycle starts again, and the little lion cubs separated from their mom at a very early age. Most of you know this, some of you might not. Please don't ever, ever go and cuddle lion cubs. I was actually going to talk about fences, but I've completely forgotten what I was... Oh well, doesn't matter. We'll go across to a place where there are very few fences, at least, across to the Masai Mara with Isaac, who's watching everything the light touches.
It is not my fault to share with you this every day, but I just want to show you how it is here every day. It's another sunrise. Another day is just about to be born. The sunrise is gonna come out over there, not less than 10 minutes to come. How beautiful it is. Quite different from yesterday. And I'm gonna remind you, this is not a postcard. Again, this is the sunrise in the beautiful Masai Mara. I don't know if you can listen, you hear the birds, all the ones that are happy to be alive, the ones that are saying, yay, there comes the sun, so they can dry their wings, and so that it's easy to fly. The crickets that have survived, the cicadas, I can hear the mourning dove, I can hear the rufous black. I'll go shut a little bit so you can listen to the sounds of this beautiful morning in the Masai Mara. Yeah, that is what I'm hearing here. I'm sure the animals also are much happier to see the sun because they know it's going to be brighter than what it is, and they're able to see all around them. So everybody is saying, what a beautiful morning. We're waiting for the sun to pop. I can see the rays. Usually here at the equator, it happens very fast. Comes up very fast. There we go. See it? Yay! Beautiful. Look at that. Comes up very fast. Wonderful. Looks like a volcano just about to erupt. Big orange ball comes up very fast, not less than 2 minutes it's out. Same thing in the evening, goes down very fast. I must say, yeah, beautiful morning here. I can't get tired of this. On those beautiful mornings, not cloudy, this is what we experience here every day. I must say, it's not always not a bad day to start, your office, to be out there in your office. It's not that bad. I can't complain. Hope the day is going to be bright as the sun. Look at that. I hope today, gets hot. Previous day and yesterday was overcast. We had lots of rain yesterday afternoon, and then the whole night it was raining. Everything is damp, wet, and with a little bit of sun will be very welcome so that everything can dry, and also the ground can take in the water a little bit. Otherwise, it's going to become too much. And we're going to have running water. It's going to become very hard to drive. So I'm talking to my gods, and telling them, please, give me a good day, a sunny day. Rest for the rain, maybe tomorrow. Yeah, beautiful. Well, I think the sun has said hello to me, and I'm going to head down the road. I don't know what is ahead of me. No news of Kinky Tail. Yesterday, James went there. He didn't have a very good afternoon because it was raining. It was very hard to maneuver all around that area. He didn't find her, but news are somebody else say that he did see some new cubs there, and I'm not sure if he was it's true or not. But this afternoon, I promise, join me. I'm going there, and I'm actually gonna leave much earlier than normal because I want to have enough time and find them. So by the time you come into the show, I'll be already with them if I find them for you. So no news yet. This afternoon is the best time to, confirm what's happening. We are actually feeling very sorry that we haven't shown you what's happening with them, but the weather has been a hindrance a little bit. With our car, our equipment, we cannot leave it open. So when it rains a little bit, you have to close it up. Makes it hard for us to bring you anything if it's raining. And that's the case that happened with James yesterday. He went there, and even if he had found them, it would have been hard for him, to point out the camera to them. I have a redneck sparrow in front of me. Mina Mood, you ask if lions go difficulty when giving birth. I think very much just like any other animal. The first birth can be tough, but the next few ones are much easier. First one usually is tough, but the next few, second, third, fourth are much easier, just like, in humans. Over here we have the redneck sparrow, and he's seriously staring at me. Yeah, you can tell that's red spot underneath the neck there, redneck sparrow. Looks very scruffy, wet. He wants to be on the road, on the track, because there's less stress walking, and he doesn't get his feathers wet. They're usually in pairs, so maybe the other one is sitting on eggs. Look at those beautiful red legs. Yeah, the other one must be sitting on eggs and must be having a very hard time sitting on eggs with this kind of weather. Okay. Okay, birdie. I want to go past you. Could you please maybe go to the side a little bit? Here where I am is prime territory for the famous and rare black rhino. No one has seen one recently, but I'm just chancing. This is what we do here. We come and you try and find something, and you might find something. Over here on this little twig, I have the yellow-throated longclaw. We might do a little bit of bird watching this morning. You can tell he's also quite cold, all curled up. Quite beautiful. Looks like he's wearing black tie. That is mate calling from the left. It's called a yellow-throated longclaw because it's got a very long hind claw. It's one of the two long claws we find in the Mara. It's a grassland bird. feeding on grasses and little insects. And he likes that patch because, you know, he's dry. He was on the truck and then he flew off. Yeah, he's giving us a morning song. I'm sure he's quite happy also to be alive. Isn't that? Wow, look at that. You see, for us, it might sound like it's not very loud, but to another bird, it can hear it from a distance, maybe even 400 meters, 300 meters. There comes the other one. Was that another one, or what was it? He chased the other one. He's somewhere there. There we go. What is that? It's another one. So he was calling for the other one to come. Yeah. Let's leave them to do their business. Let me try and find you something. But it's lovely up here. You know, there's no wind. There's no wind, it's that dead still, so it's nice to drive, nice and cool, while I continue enjoying myself here, trying to find something. I'll link you back to Sydney. I hope he's got something nice for you guys.
I have left the Buffalo's Hook Dam and now I am much more towards the eastern side of the game reserve. I am now approaching the Chitwa. So my hope this side was to see any of the predators around the cheetah cut line, which is the border between us and the Buffalo's Hook. So I just want to check here if there are no predators coming as we saw Tingana yesterday. So I will be at just now. But all the way from Buffalo's Hook, any of the tracks, I saw some hyenas a lot. Pass here. Pass. The predators are behind the thick bushes. So now let's quickly go to Jamie at the tent.
There's nothing quite like feeling terribly, terribly small in the presence of a giant. I should just clarify for those of you that perhaps have only recently joined our live safari. First of all, it's raining, which didn't really need clarification. And secondly, this delightful elephant skull that smells so beautiful from where I'm sitting this elephant died of natural causes. So this was not a poaching victim. This elephant died of quite unfortunate and very painful, or under very painful conditions, but it was not due to poaching in any way. He was actually stabbed and slightly disemboweled by a larger elephant bull. It was a very painful, very long death, and not one that was particularly pleasant to witness, but it didn't die due to human beings. Now, Michael wants to know, let me try and tie this in nicely. The reason I'm saying that I'm feeling terribly small is, first of all, I'm sitting next to the skull of an elephant, but also because the truth is, with conservation, we muddle along and do the absolute best we can and try and leave things to nature. Now, Michael wants to know, why is it that we will show rhino tracks, but we will not show the actual rhinos themselves here on Djuma? First of all, it is not our decision not to show rhino here. It is a decision made by the authorities who run this reserve, and that is entirely within their rights. It's not something that we will ever fight against. That is their prerogative. Within the Masai Mara, we have permission to do so. There are less rhino there, and therefore they can actually be individually looked after, which is why we show rhino there. Why do we show rhino tracks here? A rhino can cover up to any number of kilometers. They can walk up to 20 miles if they really feel like it. So when we tend to show you tracks, they tend to not be beautifully fresh, and they are, you know, it's not information that you could be given as to where that animal might be. I think what you'll find is that most of us with a degree of common sense will not tell you where the tracks are or where they're going to. It is not a mystery that there are rhino in the Greater Kruger National Park, which is where we are. It is not unknown. Most of the time the poaching situations come from inside information. That is one of the battles that the anti-poaching teams face. So it comes from people within the reserve. Now, I spoke before about empathy and compassion. There are many people right on the edge of this reserve that have very, very little money. They struggle to feed their families. And information, rather than doing the actual poaching, is worth an immense amount of money. It's very difficult to make that balance unless you are in that position themselves. And most of us are fortunate enough, not all of us, but most of us have been fortunate enough not to be in that position. Diana, I was answering that question and I completely forgot what you asked. What was it? It was something I've completely forgotten. I'm so sorry. It went straight in it went in that ear and out that one. I'm surprised you didn't see the words come out. Would we... Oh, it's too smelly here. Would we use camera traps to aid in conservation? Yes, absolutely. To collect information, one of the things that I worked on years ago was to put up camera traps along game paths. Now, there aren't that many game paths around the tent because the animals have started avoiding it, but there used to be a massive path that moved through this area. Now, when I was working at a reserve, there was very little known about the leopard population of that reserve. We were part of a Panthera project where they set up 100 camera traps, admittedly lost a few to the floods, and in one case, I'll tell you about that in a bit, we put up 100 camera traps and we got an idea. Okay, we've got an idea of just how many leopards on that reserve. Now, they took that information to the official government, and they then said, look, you cannot issue leopard hunting permits based on the numbers. There are not as many leopards as we think there are. We'll get back to the camera traps in a little bit because there's a story I must tell you. For now, Isaac has found the beloved jackal family, or at least some jackals. Let's go and have a look at them.
Indeed, it is a lucky morning for me. Look, 4 silverback jackals, silverbacked or the blackback jackal. Unbelievable. 4 of them. The only time you see these 4 like this is when it's a pair and they're puppies. And I think this is the case. They're sub-adult puppies. Look at them. They're calling. Let's listen to a jackal call. Excellent. Wow, look, there's submission there. I don't know what's happening. I think that's a little one trying to beg for something. Wow, look at this, guys. Yeah, that's really begging. So you can tell that's a puppy. Thinks mama's got something in his tummy to regurgitate for him. He's coming right, towards us. I don't know how close they're going to get. So actually the one in front is a puppy, and there's another one, I don't know which one. That was amazing. These are the things actually, you have to be here and for long enough to see them, or otherwise you have to be here and be very, very lucky. I've never seen 4 together calling like that. I have witnessed 2, but to see 4, what a day. What a way to start the day. you can tell that the two sub-adults are already following mom and daddy around, so they don't have to bring food back. Yeah. So, they are following them. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, this is, yeah. Yeah. They're heading towards me. They're not that close. They're quite like 50 meters, which is like 150 feet. I don't know if they're going to come all the way here. This is an amazing find for me. To see them, behaving, a whole family behaving. Looks like they ate something this morning. They're quite full. And when the sun comes up, they're going to rest. That's what they do. Look at the belly. Looks like they've eaten something. They're not that hungry. Smells something. Very much like dogs. They'll pee on little twigs and grasses, leaving their scent, which is always like the post office of the bush, where they leave a message for other jackals or other, small dog family, like, silver-backed or side-striped. They leave messages there for them, or, other jackals to tell them, Jackie was here and she's headed that way. She would like to meet you. Or, it's Isaac and I'm headed towards the river. They can tell how many days the other jackal was here, who it was, how strong it is, does it want to come into this territory or this home range. It tells a lot, and that's why they sniff the grass every time they find a scent, and that's why also they scent mark, little bushes like dogs do. You can tell it's a family, and a very busy one. They're going all over. I don't know what's their mission. The little pointy nose is very typical with jackals and the dog family, and that is mainly for when they dig a hole, they can poke into the hole and grab whatever it's in. Those big ears are for listening to the slightest movement in the grass, and sometimes with pinpoint accuracy they are able Well, I have never witnessed a dog, with a jackal calling, but I'm sure they would be curious, to pick up, or learn what sound it is. I have never witnessed, but I'm sure they would, they would be curious. I was talking about the ears. They are able to pinpoint, like birds, mice in the grass, and so they can stalk them and just jump on them, grab them, and eat them. This is the only one that doesn't want to go into the grass. Look at the coat, so beautiful. Roxy, I would say they are more related to wolves. Although they're in the same family, they would say they are more related to wolves. Although I don't know very much about wolves, here, they are in the dog family, which all of them are. There is definitely something that is there. You see that one behind? He's trying to dig. At the moment, there is lots of dung beetles, and they have already gone under. They've dug their burrows and rolled their balls down, and they are ready to hatch. And this is what they are listening for, these jackals. They're coming right in front of the vehicle, so I'm going to go quiet a little bit and see how close they get to me. Quite curious, very interesting, amazing. Right? Doesn't get better than this. A way to start the morning. I'm so happy. Jackals, the young ones will stay with their parents up to the age of about a year, and then they'll, split. They have decided that I'm very dangerous, which I'm not, and scampered off to the left. There is still one on the road, but that one has gone you know, and he's listening to me now. This is the other one. I'm not dangerous. I don't eat jackal. Yeah, and then there's the others. They've gone somewhere up there. This guy is quite close to us. I don't know if you can see him. He's only like maybe 15 feet, 5 meters. I don't know what they see. He was looking down there. Beyond, yes, they mate for life. Yeah, this and other smaller dogs we get, you know, like carnivores we get here, like the backyard fox, pair for life. I don't know what they're up to. There's the other one, you see him? Very good, you know, very well camouflaged. They pair for life. How they find each other is still a mystery to me, but I've always known that they pair for life and they give birth to up to 6 puppies. They give birth in a burrow, and the little guys stay in the burrow for up to around 2 months, where they start venturing out, and at around 4 months is when they really start following their moms. They are weaned at around 6 months, where they stop drinking, but the mothers will eat whatever they are eating and then bring the food back and regurgitate it to them. I'm going to try and reverse back, or maybe turn the vehicle, because this is actually a very interesting find. You know, you rarely find 4 of them, and I'm so excited, you know, to see 4 together. So many, you know, allow me to turn the vehicle and follow them a little bit, because I'm sure they're going to come back to the road. And, you know, let's see what they're going to do. It's going to be tricky because it's still wet. They haven't come back to the road, but I can see them. I'm hoping they're going to come back to the road. There flies a hammerkop right in front of me. Wow. Yeah, this hammerkop, or the hammerhead, a close relative of the herons. This is another funny looking bird, known to build these enormous nests that the guides make a joke that they have, you know, multiple rooms inside, even a balcony and a swimming pool. I will be showing you one some days to come. They pair for life, so when you see one also, it means the other one might be feeding somewhere else, or, you know, sitting on eggs. I wonder what he's trying to get on this dry road, because there isn't much. But everybody is loving the tracks this morning because it's rather quite wet out there. I would do the same. I don't want to wet my only shoes that I brought to the bush because I don't have any other, so I'll stick to the roads. Yeah, there goes the other jackal. What chased him? Oh, they're playing. They're playing. Yeah, I can see more coming to the track. Yeah, they are. They're coming. Keep moving forward a little bit. Here comes the other one. You know, for many years, these guys were mistaken to be scavengers, but they're not. Yes, although they do scavenge, but a bigger percentage of their meals, they hunt for themselves. They do go for small impalas, young Thompson's gazelle, scrub hares. They hunt for mice, dung beetles. So they provide for themselves. But if they find a kill, they're very patient. They'll stick around there for as long as they can until they get those little scraps that the lions don't need, or a hyena, or, a leopard or a cheetah. I don't know how they're going to react now that we're in between them. There's another game drive vehicle that's coming from the other side. And we have again, nobody really knows, or nobody has said exactly what happens. But I say it is more than likely that if there's no other jackals around of a different gender, they might, stay together. Hello. Look at him. He's all that round fox's face and big ears. I'm sure when the sun comes up, they're all gonna be very, very happy. Okay, I'm gonna see what these guys are doing. I'm really having a good time. Thank you for joining in the conversation. Keep it going. Bring, give us more questions so we can, continue entertaining you. But I'm having a very, very lovely time. It's quite rare for me to see 4 of them together, and I'm so happy. While I continue staying with these guys, I'll take you back to Jamie. I don't know what he's up to. I hope he's having a wonderful morning like I am.
Sounds like Isaac is having the most amazing jackal sighting. That's very, very special. I'm sitting marveling. I'm having a great time marveling at the design of the skull and wondering just how much it weighs. Because it probably weighs, I actually don't know, I don't think I could guess. It probably weighs a good deal more than me. I'm not even going to try and pick it up because I know that I can't. I suspect that it weighs somewhere around about 50 kilograms or so, possibly even more. I'm thinking about a bag of cement, and I'm thinking it might even be heavier than that. So imagine how much force and pressure sits on this back neck joint to hold up that pile of bones. Well, that skull, essentially. An axiom there. It would be absolutely amazing to see it all fitted together if we could have, which we couldn't have. If we could have reconstructed this elephant carcass or this elephant skeleton, it would have been utterly fascinating to look at. We simply do not have the resources to do that. Now, I was talking about camera traps and resources. Camera traps do occasionally actually help to apprehend poachers. It's rare that that does happen. We lost 2 camera traps years ago when I was part of this camera trapping project. We lost 2 of them, and they were still tied to trees. And we found areas where poachers had obviously come in, been alerted to the presence of the camera trap because they did have a very bright flash, and they'd actually removed both camera traps from the area that they'd walked in. So you could see the machete marks in the tree where they'd somehow managed to cut through the steel cable. Another time, we checked some of the camera traps and actually found pictures of poachers moving through an area. And because of that picture, we could have a look at the rifle and the homemade silencer on the rifle. And when eventually it was matched up to certain people, we were able to tie them to poaching incidents on the reserve that I worked on. So camera traps do, in their own way, actually help with things like that, but they're mostly important as a tool to get an idea of animal populations and numbers within an area. And what was nice was because we were helping Panthera with the leopards and setting it all up, it was obviously geared towards leopard. Their spot recognition software we were allowed to then use for spotted hyenas because it works in exactly the same way. It's facial, like facial recognition software on things like Facebook. I don't know if I'm allowed to say Facebook. No, I am. Things like Facebook or whatever else it happens to be, all that facial recognitions on some of those newer phones or those sorts of things. The exact same process works for spot patterns on leopards and allows a massive amount of data to be analyzed very, very quickly. So camera traps are an essential part of the conservationist's tool, especially in areas where they are essentially unknown. Forests, places where the animals are incredibly uncomfortable with the presence of people. Sorry, I'm still fascinated by the cracks in the skull. That's what's driving me mad. I was about to walk back inside to the tent, but I've decided I'd rather be outside. Trying to work out what happened here. One, the skull was dropped on its way in here, or bounced about in the vehicle. It's a very heavy thing, as I've just mentioned, so it's entirely possible that during the process of getting it here, it found itself on the floor a few times. And the other thought that I had is it might actually be impact from a chainsaw. When this elephant died, its tusks were removed in order to make sure that they didn't fall into the wrong hands. I'm not going to tell you where they went, but they were taken away officially to keep them safe from the wrong people. Maybe the chainsaw impact actually judded the cracks into the skull. Again, I didn't hear who the question was from. I think it was Nostrich. Wants to know if there's any rhino conservation projects that are actually paying off. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we're talking about something that is a really massive problem. It's run by syndicates, enormous syndicates that are involved with things like drug smuggling and human trafficking. It really is. It's run by people with vast amounts of research. Definitely no research. Market research, maybe. But resources, enormous amounts of resources. So it's something that's very difficult to tackle. But there are lots and lots of projects that are doing an immense amount of good. Education is essential, particularly for the areas where those animal products are being transported to. Used in traditional medicine, which is why rhinos are poached at the moment. Their horns, which of course are basically keratin, and it's my duty to actually explain this, they are essentially keratin. They have no medicinal properties at all. You might as well go eat your own hair or make a little potion out of your fingernails. Please don't, that's disgusting. But that's basically what rhino horn is. It's used in traditional medicine. At one point it was suggested that it might even be a cure for cancer. It is not. Obviously it's not. But what it's become now is a status symbol. So people are having parties where they've got rhino horn in front of them for everyone to take because it is incredibly expensive and it shows off their status, that they've made it, that they've reached that level of wealth where they can afford to have rhino horn, and hence why it's worth twice its weight in gold. And so the problem persists. But there are lots and lots of projects that do an immense amount of good. So please don't think that it is all doom and gloom. And as smelly as it might be from where I'm standing, and boy is it smelly, there's a lot of hope for the future. Speaking of bright and beautiful things, Steve is just loving the flowers that are out and about at the moment. Let's go back across to him.
Well, thanks, Jamie. What marvelous topics you are having this morning in the tent, as it so always happens. When you go into the tent, generally the rain then stops. We haven't had another bit of rain since, which I'm quite happy about. But we were having a look at some guinea fowl a moment ago, but obviously they didn't stick around for very long. Maybe they know about this plant called the felt violet ruellia, named after some French guy many years ago, Jean-Luc Ruellier, if I'm saying that correctly. And I discussed this on Monday as part of my Medicinal Monday morning segment, and this plant is apparently used in a love potion, and somehow, for some reason, this love potion is supposed to make one invisible. So maybe the guinea fowl know about that. Senzo's just got very excited with me saying a love potion making one invisible. So used magically, traditionally, in the Lowveld for invisibility. How amazing is that? So a beautiful bush of felt violet ruellia, which with the purple coloration you can tell is most likely to attract a nocturnal insect, probably a moth, due to the fact that it's a long tubular flower. And you can see inside there's actually those sort of lines. Those are generally landing strip sort of lines that would actually show up quite nicely on a UV sort of light. Obviously, I don't have one with me now. And the Bushveld Aurelia, one of the pretty flowers that are around at the moment. I don't know about its toxicity. I only know the little bit of information that I've given you. Sadly, the information on wild flowers in South Africa, it's there, but it is rather limited when it comes to really delving in to the mysteries of it all. But indeed, a love potion of invisibility. I find that a marvelous, marvelous story, and Senzo loves it as well, don't you, Mkize? Okay, so we've checked the eastern side of Djuma now. Sydney has also popped back onto Djuma. He's been wandering down in Chitwa, and I don't think much is going on over there. It's very windy, very nice and cool. There is a very good possibility we might bump something walking in the road, but from a tracking point of view, we haven't found any fresh tracks, whatever. So we're going to continue on down now. We're making our way back sort of towards the Umawati drainage, and then we might go and check the western side, because both Sidders and myself he went north and I went south, and we both kind of have covered the east. So let's go and see what's going on the west. Wouldn't it be quite something if Shadulu suddenly materialized on the western side with her apparently new cubs? That would be exciting. I'd love to see her. She is definitely one of the coolest leopards around. And they're all pretty cool though, aren't they? They're all pretty cool. Maybe we should do a little Twitter poll there. Who is the coolest leopard on Djuma? Who is the coolest leopard on Djuma? This is going to cause all sorts of controversy, I have no doubt. But while we wait for you to send through your answers to #SafariLive, we've got a European roller that's just landed in the tree just in front of us there. I think it's a European roller. Yes, it is. Beautiful blue roller with that long, sharp beak. Excellent flyers in the wind, although they don't use their flying for catching food. They generally will just flop down on the grass and catch whatever it is that they're looking for. Sitting there on their perch, waiting for an animal to sort of move through the grass or for an insect to twitch, and then they do what we call a plunge dive, plunging onto the floor, landing on the insect itself, and then, if need be, flying back up to the perch to smash it against the branch to obviously break up the chitin, the exoskeleton, so that it is then easily broken down in the crop for digestion. And see how windy it is though, folks. Look at those feathers on the back. Send through your comments. #SafariLive. Who is the coolest leopard on Djuma? I have no doubt this is going to break the Twitter this morning. The Twitter, as if it is an object. It is an object. I don't really know. Social media is beyond my mind. Okay, we're going to wait a little while. There's a few answers coming through already. No doubt they are the top leopards on Djuma. We'll see who the final answer is. No one is saying Shadulu. I think maybe because you don't see her enough. Hukumuri is a pretty cool dude in his own right. But no doubt they're probably going to be winners in the name of Tingana and Horsana. Right in over there, I had Tingana just after he got healthy again and ended up breaking the axle on the vehicle. Not the axle, the steering arm. And the wheels did this. It's very hard to drive the car when the wheels are like this. I don't know if you've ever tried. Umfokazi is getting a vote. I haven't seen Umfokazi. Tlalamba, ooh, little Tlalamba. She's a little cool cat, isn't she? Yes, she is. Yes, she is. Thandi, obviously, she's the queen. I don't know if she's cool. She's awesome, but cool. Senzo is also agreeing. She's not cool. Thandi is magnificent, but I don't know if she's cool. Rosana is just a cool cat because he just does what he wants to. He does what he wants to. He rules the place. Hukumuri, I'd love to see Hukumuri more often. We did a Twitter poll before I went on leave. Who would win in a fight, Hukumuri or Tingana? And it was stand down. Everybody declared Tingana to be the dominant. And for now, that is definitely the case. Ooh, Kuchava's also forming a name there. Very good. She is a beautiful leopard. I've only had the fortune of seeing her once. She had I think it was an impala. It might have been a stimbok up a tree on Chitwa. I believe Hosanna struggled with her. Hosanna struggled with her not so long ago over some meat. The poor lady. And Thandi has been labelled as the grumpy one. Well, we all know Thandi is grumpy. So I'm glad everyone's agreeing that she's not cool. You can't be cool and grumpy at the same time. I don't think that works. No, definitely doesn't work in the same sentence. Tingana is the boss. Bukumuri, well, I wonder what we're going to call him. Kuchava is gorgeous. Tlalamba's the cutest thing around. Hosana's a cool cat. Any mention there, Murray, of Shadulu? I think she's a super cool. VM the wildebeest, when you say all he wanted to do every single day was find Shadulu. Let's go find Shadulu. Let's go find Shadulu. Let's track Shadulu. Shadulu is definitely featuring. Shadulu's on the map. Now, if we found Shadulu this morning with cubs, no doubt that would just break the Twitter bank right there. New cubs coming in from the west. Well, I think we were so blessed, weren't we, last year when I arrived in January, February, March, April, we basically spent every single day with little Tlalamba, little Princess Tlalamba. It was a magical time. That was before she even had a name. She was just called a ball of fluff for a long time. A very special time. Definitely one of the highlights of my career, spending 3-4 months with the baby leopard. Karula was indeed the queen. I actually met her, those of you who might not remember, but I came for an interview here in 2010. Yep, 2010, before I was all grey. And Karula was definitely around. I remember doing an entire 3-hour game drive with her. It was very special. Very, very special. Okay, so we're back on the Twin Dams Road in the heart of Djuma. This is right here on the right is where we had that evoker male yesterday. He was just hanging about. As if you missed the show yesterday, folks, don't worry, you didn't miss much with him. He did absolutely nothing. His ear flicked a few times. That was the highlight. We thought about doing an unscheduled broadcast, but just wasn't up to scratch. He lay here, and then he moved there, and then that was basically it. He waited for the early hours of the morning before getting up and walking all the way to Uitela and then walking all the way back south again. So maybe he heard his brothers calling, because there's reports of the other two evoker males being south in Little Gowrie, so just south of Twin Dams Road. That's basically directly south behind us. But we are in search of some tracks. See, there's the male line tracks. He headed straight up this road this morning at some stage. Didn't even seemingly stop over here at Chelapan for a drink. Chelapan is looking in a very, very good state, I must add. Let's just pull up and we can show you. Nice to see all of the water here. We had Osana here a week and a half ago on the side of the bank on that side over there, and it was the water level was all the way down, so he was right next to the water. So it's good to see how just from a rainfall these little pans have formed. These are all seasonal pans, folks, that are formed purely by rainfall, and they're created by the movement of mud, initially from a hoof mark to an elephant scraping, a warthog wallowing, a buffalo wallowing, and eventually after all that mud and sediment is removed with the body of these animals, it becomes larger and larger and larger, and you generally find these little pans low down in the landscape just above the river line, and behind on the other side over here is the tree line, and the Umawati drainage system is in there. And so you find these pan systems at the lowest level of what we call the katina or the slope, and all the clay particles have washed down and accumulate in sort of low-lying areas, and that's what allows these pans to form. Completely rain-fed, and beautiful breeding areas for frogs, lovely areas for terrapins, and another reason why it's even harder to find animals this time of year, because these pans are scattered everywhere. Even a very small pan, a puddle, is enough to sort of satisfy a leopard or lion for their water requirements. So we got to search and check all of them. Well, I'm going to turn around and go back west along the road here that is called Pangolin Track, and that's got a number of pans along it as well, and let's see what we can find. But in the meantime, all up in the Mara, Isaac seems to have found a very water-loving animal.
Here we are with two of our big grazers. The hippopotamus. We call him kiboko in Swahili. Quite far out of water, but over here there's no stress, so they can be out. This time of day it's cool, no sun. The sun usually is the one that keeps them in the water most of the day, but nothing to worry about that. They can fill in, whatever they didn't fill up in the night. They consume a lot of grass. They are some of our biggest grazers here, and they are one of the main mowers. They mow our grass. They are our main mowers. They eat most of it, and we like them, being out. I would love to see them more, but because of the sun, they have to stay in the water. Over here, I think rabies, no. Rabies, no. For grazers, I've never heard of them getting rabies. They have been known to get other diseases like anthrax, but not rabies. Rabies is more related to meat eaters and insect eaters. Those are the ones that actually get the diseases. This is the famous hippo, we call it. Here they are very busy feeding on the marsh. This guy, you can tell, is not worried at all. The weather is cool. You can see how misty it is back there. It is actually quite chilly even for me. I'm braving out in shorts and folding my jumper, but it is quite chilly. They're quite a distance, so we're not disturbing them, and that's why they're feeding at ease. The hippo is very widespread along the Mara River. They have to have a water body, a permanent water body, to be able to do well. And in this case, the Mara River is not very far from where they are. Along the Mara River, we have pools almost every 100 meters where there's a bull with his females. Over here, they seems to be venturing more out. I would say maybe they woke up late last night and realized that they were not going to get their fill, but luck was on their side. The sun didn't come out, came out and then went back into the clouds, and so they can stay out more. There's a beautiful forest at the back there. That's a mixture of common trees, which is the oleodendron, or the olive tree, the diasparus, and the small shrubbery trees underneath. Those are the croton. Those are the ones lions love to hide under during hot days because they repel insects. It's called olekerdengai in Maasai. A hardy wood used for also building the huts. Fahrenheit, good question you're asking. Is it usual to see hippos grazing during the day? No, it's not common. It's those few days in a year that you get where everything is perfect for them and they decide to come out like these guys have. This guy seems to be heading towards us. That's so nice for you to face us. Mind you, most of these must be males, because males are tolerated most of the time. But when a female comes into season, yes, Glory, have I ever seen a hippo give birth? Also, no, I have never seen, but I have seen a very new one, just almost like 10 minutes old, still having its umbilical cord, and the afterbirth still almost attached, to the umbilical cord and also hanging behind him. I've seen that, but I've never seen a bath. Yeah, I was talking about, big bulls being tolerated by the main male as long as there's no females in estrus. Once females come into estrus, then there is trouble. He will always chase them away, the other males, and this is the case. You find them spending more time out, hoping to find some new pools, where they haven't been occupied, where they can lure new females and start their new pods. They graze a lot, and they have this hard pad on their lips that actually plucks the grass. And then they have almost, I think, around 3 to 6 molars, very thick, that grind the grass. It's not properly chewed and then swallowed. So they have to keep eating to compensate their body size. They are not ruminants, and so, they need to constantly eat. And this is what they're doing here. Over here, unlike other areas where it dries, they don't need to walk very far. Where it's very dry, they have been known to walk up to, 3-4 miles for grazing. Over here, they do only about, 1 mile. Can you hear our jackals from before? I don't know what they're excited about, but they're calling everywhere. Yeah. And I'm going to move on, and it's quite wet. I really like to concentrate. So I'm going to link you back to Jamie, who's, in the studio talking about conservation.
Very comfortable sitting here in the tent with my cup of tea that Lauren has just delivered to me very kindly. I mean, as things go, as mornings go, it's quite a nice way to spend a morning. I can hear the wind howling outside, but we're a little bit sheltered in the tent. I've got my tea. Got a captive audience to talk about things that we're obviously all very passionate about. It really doesn't get better than this. So what I've been looking at while you've been away is something that is very basic, very easy to look at. It is a piece of elephant tooth, one of the newer sets of molars that has fallen out of the elephant's jawbone. And I'm just sort of shifting the focus around from the microscope so you can see the different layers. You'll see there's quite a lot of sand on it. Now, if I were to take this tooth and I were to give it a jolly good clean and I were to polish it up and then to carve it, I would be in possession of ivory. Because essentially, technically, that is what ivory is. It's something's tooth that has been used to carve, or that's been dealt with by humans and used for decor or for various purposes. Isn't that bizarre? One of the most enormous illegal trades in the world is based on a tooth. And that's what elephant tusks are. It just so happens that because they're larger, along with hippo tusks and even warthog tusks at times, because they are that much larger, obviously that... I'm so sorry, Lauren. There goes your coffee. I'm sorry, I could not look at that. Oh, shame. Oh, I know he's crying over spilled coffee, but I mean, it's really very tempting at this point. Now, Joanne asked a question earlier. Murray did tell me what it was, and I don't know why I've developed the memory of a goldfish, but apparently in fact, my memory is probably worse than a goldfish, because I know Joanne asked a question, and I cannot, for the life of me, remember what it is. That's right. Joanne wants to know, if you run into poachers, what are you able to do? From our side, very little. Chances are you're not going to run into a poacher because they are watching the entire time. They're alert, they're aware of what's going on, and they move out of your way very quickly, and they are very skilled at staying hidden and unseen and unheard. So chances are they're not going to draw attention to themselves. They don't want to. They don't want to bring the wrath of the anti-poaching team down upon them. They don't want to risk it. So chances are if you run into a poacher, you're not even going to know about it. And actually, in a way, that's why constant activity, constant vehicles on a reserve can act as a deterrent, because it means that the poachers can't move in the way that they want to. I once bumped into a poacher. It was a very scary moment. We had a servitude through a farm to get onto the reserve that I worked at, and it was at the gate, and we came home around about midnight. I can't remember where we'd been. I think we'd been to town and come back late. But my friend's dog, Loki, was sitting in the back, and we stopped at the gate, and after a certain time, because it was a private gate, there was no guard there or anything. You just got out and you under the padlock. And while we were doing that, Loki went absolutely insane. She started barking, growling in the back of the car, trying to get out of the car. And we turned the car around, because none of us had torches, because we were naughty. We turned the car around, and we shone a bit further up the fence, and we saw a poacher halfway up the fence. He then ducked and ran, and we spent the entire night, we stayed up the whole night, driving round that fence line, up and down, and up and down, and up and down. There's no real danger to us in that sense, because the poachers don't want to draw attention to themselves, but it was just to stop them from being able to do whatever it was that they were intending to do. Whether or not we did, we'll never know. Shortly after that, we lost 10 rhino in 6 months. One of those unfortunate realities. I don't mean to come across as lecturing, because I don't have all the answers either. I really don't. But I don't think that not having answers is the reason not to talk about something. And by just opening up this topic of conversation, we can get a whole load of different perspectives, and we can discuss the advantages and the disadvantages of each approach and the way in which we go about things. So that was the time I ran into a poacher. I did a lot of anti-poaching patrols. I'm not a trained anti-poacher. I have absolutely no skill with any kind of weapon other than a rifle. But Nature Girl has a dog called Loki as well. I'm thrilled to hear it. I'm glad that there's more than one Loki. Loki was a very special girl. She was a Labrador crossed something. It was something else in her. I think it might have been a Basset or something like that, bloodhound. Something along those lines. She had a very, very sensitive nose. Teslix, you want to know if any of the reserves around South Africa dehorn their rhino? Yes, lots of them do. What does dehorning mean? Just quickly for those that aren't that experienced, cut your fingernails. If you cut your fingernails too short, you go into the growth point and it hurts. You go into the quick, it's very, very sore. The same applies for a rhino. There is a point at which you can cut a rhino's horn off and it doesn't hurt them in any way. There's conflicting evidence about whether or not it disadvantages them. They do use their horn for fighting each other, but largely it seems as though the positives of that outweigh the negatives. However, you then have to advertise that you've dehorned your rhino. Well, what's the point of doing it if you don't? Because then people are just going to go, they're going to track down a rhino, they're going to kill the rhino, and then they're going to go, oh, well, we've got this far. Now, the rhino's still dead. Doesn't really help. You've got to advertise that the rhino have been dehorned. You have to leave a hand span, and it's actually my hand's but small. You actually need a man's hand to sit at the base of the rhino's nose and then cut from the top there. But that much horn, and of course the bit below the skin, is worth, that's where the thickest part of the horn is, and that's still worth money. So unfortunately, dehorning, while a little bit effective in terms of discouraging poachers and perhaps making it more likely, the problem is it makes them more likely to just go somewhere else where they haven't dehorned their rhino, because it costs money. And it has to be done every couple of years because rhinos' horns grow. So it's it's one of those funny ones. The same goes for poisoning horns. A lot of people have tried poisoning or dyeing horns so that either they can be traced or they cause harm further down the market. It doesn't necessarily work unless you advertise you've poisoned the rhino horn. And then again, the poachers don't care if they can sell it. Let's go across to Sydney. A gentleman out and about this morning have been working very hard to find something. Let's see if Sydney's had any luck.
My apologies for the poll. I am right following the tracks of the leopard here, and this tracks looks very, very much fresh. I just want to show you here on the ground. So you can see that this leopard has been here, and this has not been long time ago. So we have been following these tracks all the way down from that side, and they are going much more this side. I'm not going to waste time here. I just want to quickly keep following and see if we are not going to be lucky with these beautiful cats. So the tracks, they look very fresh for this morning, and is heading much more towards the quarantine area. So let's see what we are going to find somewhere this side. So it's nice and windy here. Chances of finding this kind of cats on a kill, they're always very high because they always don't want to miss any opportunity when they are walking and patrolling their territories. So the tracks, they look very much big. Maybe it's one of the big males. Oh, here is Steve. Morning, morning, morning. How are you?
Good. I thought I could hear you, the windy down the road.
Yeah, I'm just keep following the tracks. There's fresh tracks of a leopard going down that way.
I haven't seen anything.
Yeah, no, they're going much more this side.
Good luck, eh?
Thanks, man. And what we're looking for?
Just driving.
Okay, all the best.
Have a beautiful morning.
Okay, so that was Steve and the crew at that side. They are also looking for anything, anything and everything. They don't have a specific target at the moment. So they didn't see the tracks we are following. Alisa, the animals which are much more hard to track from all these predators, I can say is a leopard, because a leopard prefers to go and hide sometimes by the big drainage lines, which is difficult to see. Sometimes they can walk and just climb a tree and you just see the track disappeared. You don't see where those tracks went up to. So the leopards can be difficult sometimes. So now those tracks got disappeared somewhere here. So I'm gonna have to reverse and check nicely. I lost this track somewhere here. So the surface is getting very much hard here where I am. And if there is no fine particles on the road, it's difficult when these animals are walking. I'm sure that is why Steve did not see the tracks from this side. Yeah, here the surface is very much hard. So all I've got to do is to go down and see if I can find the smooth areas to see if these tracks are not going to come out. So this leopard is somewhere around here. So I'm gonna have to check carefully here now that there is fine particles here on the road, so I will be able to see the tracks if they've crossed. So maybe this means this leopard is already by the other side of the quarantine. So now while I am trying to reallocate these tracks, let's quickly go back to Steve.
Well, thank you. We'd like to give Sydney a hand there. I didn't see any tracks on my way up the road there, but after Sydney passed us, we then started finding the male leopard tracks there with a very nice pile of poo. Very fresh. Almost thought about sticking my finger in it. I'm only joking. I'm only joking. Anyway, I know Sydney's come from that way, so we're going to go around this way and see what else we can pick up. He is a very good tracker. I've no doubt he will have some luck. Probably a good chance that, because we came along Pangolin, there was no... Let me show you on the map. It's much easier to understand what I'm talking about. Here is the beautiful map. Some of you said yesterday that you love it when we show you the map. Here I was coming up... Where was I? I was coming up Rebecca's Road. We saw Sydney about over there somewhere, and the tracks are coming down the road here. So we came up here. We didn't see any tracks along there, so it's a good chance he might have popped through and somehow come through that side. And there's a road over here called Leopard or Ingwe Alley that I would really go and check if I was Sydney. I know he'll probably know that because we came along this way. Oopsie, sorry about that. Along Pangolin, didn't find any leopard tracks there. So now we've come around the top and we're going to go back down this way and maybe go and give him a hand that side if he doesn't get there before us. So very nice. What a beautiful morning. It's lovely cloud covers, keeping it nice and warm. I'm not going to lie, Jamie Patterson, you made me very jealous when you said you were having a nice cup of tea. I did not make myself a pot of coffee this morning. That is my own fault, though. Senzo's telling me I should get up earlier so I can make us all coffee. You don't want to know what I said to him. Anyway, now we go. We're going to head back down a little bit more south. We're right on our western side. This is an area that Hukumuri does spend a lot of time. But, well, not a lot of time, but some time. But from that track, I'm definitely a male. It's hard to say whether it's Tingana or Sana or Hukumuri, but I'm sure Sydney will show us shortly. But anyway, Isaac is still with his Mfubu.
Here we have another one of our big herbivores. I think this morning I've seen about 7, which is wonderful. See how the grass is high here. The wildebeest didn't do enough damage, and the hippos are utilizing that chance. You know, the leftovers. They're loving it. See how fat he is. He's enjoying the grass. He's trying to put as much distance from us as possible. Although, you know, I mean no harm, but they know we are the super predator. They'll always try to get away from us. This is how slow they walk, hippos. Looks like he's very imbalanced. It looks like he might fall off. But I tell you, this guy can run fast. You don't want to be in the way of a hippo. And they're very widespread all over Kenya. And as you know, they cause a lot of deaths over here because most areas they are in are protected. We never hear of cases of them causing deaths. So here people are controlled. They cannot come in here. But every 10 years we do hear of one injured. No fatalities. I'm gonna try and continue on. Gizmo! I think in the camera, in the picture, they look small. But I tell you, they are the same size as the normal hippos you normally see. 2 tons. You see the upper part of their body. The rest is hidden by the grass. And that's why you think they're small. They are not small. I'll stop again here. And Bungei will try and, zoom in and see if we can see the actual size. But they're actually quite big. I don't think they get bigger than this. Now you know the hippos can be out of water. It's not always that. Bika, I don't know if I understood your question. You say they cannot live on what in water? Ate? Please, if you ask me the question, I'd really love to answer you. Yes, they can. They can because they are touched and they're using everything in the animal. Like when the blood is flowing, they're using, all the oxygen in the blood and all that, so they don't need to get out of water. He's trying to keep, as much distance away from me as possible. I don't know if I can get closer to him again. Sasa, your video imepatikana? Okay. Ilikuwa huko kwetu. Sawa. Everybody wants to have a good look of the hippo. It's a rare phenomenon to see them out of water like this. So my friend here is trying to see him also. Let me not go on that side. See, his tiny little legs, and he's covering lots of distance. So please, could you repeat the whole question? What are they from elephants? I didn't hear that. They are not. Are hippos fatter than elephants? No, they're not. Actually, I wouldn't compare the two because they're totally different sizes. The hippo has got its own size, and the elephant has got its own size. For their size, they're really fat, and for the elephant, they are also, quite fat. They're two different. It's very hard to compare the two. This guy might be heading back towards the pod. Look at that. You rarely get to see them out of water, so I hope you're enjoying seeing them out of water. Looks like a immature black-headed heron to the left there. Looking closer with my binoculars, I can tell that his back thigh, he has been in a fight, and it's a bit swollen just below the tail and to the left. And actually you can see a tick. Can you see a tick on the tail? There is a tick to the left of the tail. So that proves, what I was telling you earlier. Yeah. He's not eating as much. He's trying to keep to put it at a big distance as much as possible from us. That little tail is the one responsible for spreading or scattering the droppings when they go to the bathroom. Hippos are known to do that, and there is a story related to the spreading of their urine and droppings. In my home, we were told that during creation, other animals that eat fish complained because the hippo lived in the water, and they said it was eating too many fish. And he kept saying that the reason he stayed in the water was because he wanted to keep his weak skin in the sun wet so he doesn't get sunburn. But everybody was very skeptic and said, no, you eat fish. And he said, you know what? Every day when I go to the bathroom, I'll spread my droppings using my tail, and please come and look for fish bones. If you find some, then chase me off the water. And yeah, that's how it spreads, its droppings and urine using the tail, so that all the other animals can be proven wrong. It's hard to believe that such a big animal can live only on grass. But yes, the grass is highly nutritious. It's less than 1 kilometer. How far is the water from where they are? It's less than 1 kilometer. You see that thick forest down there? That's where the river is. So it's not far at all. Okay, hippo, you're away enough from me. There's another one to the left. Ravinda, you ask how they can breathe underwater. They don't breathe underwater. They hold their breaths underwater, only coming out at intervals of 3 to 5 minutes. They stay comfortably for 3, but under threat they can stay up to 5 minutes underwater, or even add an extra minute. So they don't breathe underwater. This guy is very happy. Looks like he doesn't want to head towards the other one, so definitely maybe he smells or sees the other one. Okay, I'm gonna Alisa, you asked if the lions attack hippos. Yes, they do. We have lions that go for hippos, and unasemaje? There is a pride that goes for hippos, and also historically we know of one big pride called the Notches. It was a father and 4 male cubs that formed a coalition, and they were known to bring down fully grown hippos. I have witnessed, and so yes, they do go for hippos. Over there we have a spawing goose, I think with a duckling with to the left. You see, it takes a lot of energy and time to bring down a fully grown hippo. 5 fully grown male lions weigh around 1,250 kilos. A fully grown hippo weighs around 2 tons, which is 2,000 kilos. For those 5 to kill a fully grown hippo, they really have to find it far enough out of water, then corner it, really tire it, and that would take maybe even an hour or 2. And usually the worst mistakes that the hippo does is either to fall down while trying to turn around, because they usually try and come in from the backside. While he's trying to turn, if he falls down, then that is the end of him, if they're 5, because some of them will start eating him alive. Usually they know the weak points, the neck, the joints, so that he cannot run away, and that's how they kill the hippo. Otherwise, they cannot suffocate or bite into the jugular vein or windpipe. They cannot. So they eat him alive. Quite ruthless, but it happens. Did you hear me? Sorry. I was talking about you. Okay. To the left, I think we saw a nice big bird. I think I have a spawing goose there. It's one of our biggest geese. And while I try and identify, if it's really a spawing goose, I'm gonna link you back to Sydney, who's still struggling to find your leopard. I hope he finds you a leopard. In here.
I am right now having more evidence of these tracks here coming towards that direction. If you can check here, you will see that I have got a track here. And this track, I am not too sure if this is from the very same leopard I'm following. But I can see the track looks very fresh because here the track nearly disturbed the track of the millipede. So these animals in the morning is very easy to estimate their direction of movement and to estimate the age, because some of the insects as well, including the ant lions, they wake up between 6:30 and 7:30. If we find that the lion track or this leopard track is on top of the ant lion tracks, we can easily estimate that it was before the activities of the ant lions or after. Then if the ant lion is on top of the lion tracks, we can also estimate makers of that. So here I can see that this leopard, the tracks are very much fresh because it's on top of some of the millipedes. So now I'm going to move much more deep in these bushes here and see if we cannot find this leopard. So he went right in here. I'm just going to check this whole quarantine, the western side, and see if the tracks are not coming out, and then we take it from there. He must be somewhere here. So we saw a head of impala is much more towards the eastern side of the quarantine. Oh, here's the leopard. Ooh, yeah, under the tree. Yeah. Can you see that? Yeah. I got him, yeah. So now we are very lucky we got the leopard. Look at that. Morning, all stations. This is Sydney. I've got a leopard by the western side of quarantine. So you can see that the leopard we've been following all along, suddenly we got him here. So this is so cool. You can see that in the mornings it's not easy to find this. But like I said, those tracks, the tracks over the insects and these millipedes told me that this is too fresh. So I'm just going to now reverse and position myself nicely so that I can give you the best sighting. So I'm going to see him nice and close at the moment. So I can see that leopard is now lying down there. So we're not going to see him the way he's lying down now. Oh, he's... So I just want to check if it's Tingana or not, but it looks like it's Tingana. It's lying down flat at the moment. It's lying down flat at the moment. Not very easy to see as the face is still down, but I can see that, yeah, from the face I can tell that this is Tingana. So the stomach is very much full. Maybe it's due to a lot of consumption of fish yesterday by the chitwa. So he looks very beautiful and he's full at the moment. So you can see how he's sleeping, that it was not going to be easy for us to spot him from there. We were lucky that when we got there, maybe because of trekking, he became inquisitive and raised the head. So these kind of animals, like Tingana, who are territorial holders, mostly they do Safari Sari. There's quite a lot of things we've got to consider when you are doing some trekking. You have to check things such as time of the day. Early in the mornings, it's easy to trek. During the day when the sun is too bright, it's difficult to judge. A very fresh trek is not clear. And also when the wind is too much, it blows the tracks and it's difficult to judge the age as well. When the moisture is too much on the ground, also makes it very difficult, because an old track can always look still very fresh. So there's a lot of things we have to consider. Insect movement, tracks on top of insects as well, help us in order to determine the age. So I'm going to have to check all these things before I decide on a direction of movement. You can also be assisted by the droppings, because if he's walking and living behind the droppings, you can check the age of the droppings, can also help. The largest prey animal I have seen the leopard hunting is the nyala. So nyala is big compared to the preferable prey targeted by the leopard mostly. So the nyalas, those are big, but leopards, they do catch them. And Tingana as well is one of those who does sometimes go after the nyalas. They can also target some of the big prey. If they have got babies, they can target the babies of some of the big preys. So he's having problems with the flies there. You can see there's quite a lot of flies as at the moment disturbing him. So you can see how the wind is blowing. You can see that this surrounding and the grass is there is blown by the wind every time. Yeah, the flies are bothering him at the moment. So as the territorial holder, he's got quite a responsibility every morning, or most of the time, let me rather say, he's got a responsibility of walking around the territory and mark and remark so that he can keep renewing his scent to communicate about his presence in the territory with the other males from the surrounding. So he doesn't have to mark once. It's not a once-off thing. They must have to maintain it. So because animals don't put fences, they rely on the scent. So the scent, it can be able to tell animals that the area has already been marked and there is a territorial holder inside. So you can see that he looks very much tired, because he's even trying to lie down under a very small tree. But the weather at the moment is nice and cool, and there is no sun at the moment. But you can see he's tired already. I didn't copy the question very well. If you can repeat that. You can see now it's just moving there. Miss Muffin Girl, I don't think he's going to kill nearby. The thing is, we have seen him yesterday around Chita feeding on some of the dead fishes around Chita. So maybe that is why the stomach is full. But when checking the distance and the age of the tracks from where we got the tracks until here, I can see that he doesn't have anything nearby. So he has been just walking and walking until he got here. And I'm not seeing any evidence there showing that he's got blood or anything to show he's got something around here. So maybe it takes time in order to digest the fish. So now let's cross over to Jamie.
You know, it's quite embarrassing. While I've been sitting playing puzzles here, although there are bits missing, which James Henry's going to be very upset about. What's quite embarrassing is I think I actually bumped into Tingana on foot this morning, and then I got distracted by the hyena, because I'm pretty sure what we heard screaming was a scrub hare that he'd caught. I think it was a tiny little meal for him. And I think when I went walking to investigate, I think, because we know what Tingana's like on foot, I think he probably got a little bit of a fright and moved away from me, and then the hyena came running and got distracted by us. Well, it might have saved Tingana a meal, actually, although I don't think so. I don't think that hyena would have been brave enough to challenge him. But Sydney's right here. So that's what we heard this morning, and I'm decidedly embarrassed. I don't know if it was a scrub hare, maybe it was a Daco or a Steenbok or something. Maybe you might find that Sydney finds him with a kill. But, whoops. I had all the clues at my fingertips this morning. I just didn't manage to. I was so distracted that I didn't manage to put them together. I'm decidedly embarrassed. Sorry, guys. Sorry. He was right here the whole time. Probably was sitting outside the tent when we came out this morning in the dark. Is a happy prospect. Now, back to what we've been talking about. Anna Marie wants to know if snares are illegal or if they are still used. Snares are completely 100% illegal. They are, however, still used, and it's one of those things that, again, is a very tricky, very not controversial, it's not even controversial, actually, topic of conversation. Snares are indiscriminate pieces of metal. For those of you that don't know, it's usually metal that's used, that make a loop that obviously when an animal walks through it then tightens, and the harder the animal pulls, the tighter the snare goes, until eventually the animal is completely trapped and there it stays. Now, they are set out not to catch things like leopards, hyenas, elephants, anything like that. They are set out to catch antelope that are then going to be used for purposes of food by people who could very well use some food. So it's a very difficult situation. Unfortunately, snares absolutely cannot be allowed because they're totally indiscriminate, and they do catch lions, and they do catch leopards, and they do catch hyenas, and they do severe damage to those animals. And what you'll notice is that whenever we see, sorry, there's something very itchy in my eye. What you'll notice is when we see, for example, the short-trunked elephant, the injury is most likely, it could be from a crocodile, it's unlikely, it's most likely from a snare. And it's something that the people who manage these reserves, both in the Mara and here in South Africa, are constantly looking to remove. And every time they remove one, there's more put out. Where we are now, within the sands, there are very, very few snares, if indeed any, because, well, let's just be honest. With a number of lodges and very fancy lodges out here, there's a considerable amount of income being generated by tourism. That income then goes into being able to have the manpower to constantly, for example, search for snares, check the fences, make sure that there's no pangolins trapped under the fence or tortoises or something like that, to pay for anti-poaching teams. That is why tourism is so important. And when it comes down to it, as unpleasant as it sounds, animals have to pay their way. in their own way. So habituating them to cars is very important because tourists have to want to come and see. Now, Lily, who is 7 years old, has asked a really difficult question, but a very good question, as Lily always does. Lily wants to know if her conservation efforts at home help animals out here in Africa. Yes, absolutely, Lily. There are lots of different ways that you can help animals out here at home. Now, especially for you at your age, what we need you to do is to keep loving the animals out here and the nature out here with all your heart, and to work as hard as possible as you can to actually be able to understand how everything works out here and why it's so important that we protect everything. Because when you grow up and you get to be a little bit older, Lily, you are going to be one of the most important people out there when it comes to looking after our future and the future of the animals out here. You're going to be telling all your friends about it. You're going to be teaching people that you meet about what is important about conservation, what is good and what is bad, and the fact that nature should be left to run things her own way as much as possible. And you're going to do that, and I know you're going to do that because I know you very well. You're going to do that with your usual compassion and your love for people as well as animals, and that's important. Ed, yes, absolutely. If we were to find a leopard or a hyena in a snare, we would intervene provided we could find that animal. I've had a situation twice in my life where we've seen a hyena on a camera trap with a snare. We've never managed to find it. And voila, a year later it popped up and luckily it was alive. That was a story with a happy ending. It had somehow managed to break that wire and it was alive. Leopards, of course we would. We would absolutely intervene. Hyenas, anything with a snare. It could be an impala with a snare. We will intervene. Well, we won't personally, but people will intervene in order to help it out, because that is a human-caused injury. Now, we haven't even chatted about other threats to the animals out here. There are plenty. And while rhinos and elephants and lions get a lot of publicity, there are plenty of animals that are facing what's known as a silent extinction because of the loss of their habitat, just like those giraffe with Isaac in the Mara.
Here we found a tall one, but I'm in the middle of the road. I'm gonna try and reposition. There are quite a good number of them. I don't know if you can see them. Yeah, we do have almost 1, 2, 3, 4, quite a good number, about 15 of them. Sorry, I have to move again. Yeah, I think my friend has got a Land Rover, so he's not worried at all. Yeah, these are journey of giraffes, quite a good number of them. We counted about 15. Nice area for them. Yeah, they're very, very close. And majority of them are females. Some of them are very pregnant. I think they're just coming together because this is typical for them. When they're just about to start giving birth, they form a nursery. Yeah, they form a nursery and then they give birth, where they take intervals in babysitting. This is the Maasai giraffe, and they're doing what they do best, feeding for 16, 20 hours of a day, automatically shutting down when they've had a feel, then chewing the cud. Place like a Masai Mara is a perfect place to see them because we have over about 160 different types of shrubs and trees, and this is what they need so that they can feed. Surprisingly, we normally don't look for them. They just appear when you're driving. Unless you're really desperate, then you'll come looking for them. But they're always somewhere, you know. Right now, I was aiming for the river, see if I could find some more hippos, maybe in a pod. And I came across these guys. They were right in the middle of the road, and there's nothing I could do. I had to show them to you. Look at that mane behind the neck. You see it? So beautiful, long hairs. Do you see the oxpecker peeping just at the angle where the neck bends? You see him over there? Is that an oxpecker? Sorry, I think I'm losing my eyesight. It's part of the hairs. Got the beautiful there is all the plains behind them, you know, behind us towards the Olololo escarpment. The giraffe appears in our 1 shilling. So right now we were making a joke here and saying we have about 14 shillings if this were to turn into shillings. I don't think I want them to turn into shillings. I would prefer them to stay as giraffes because they're better this way. What are you listening to? You're listening to us? Yeah. He's right very close to me. Very inquisitive. Look at those long eyelashes. Those are for preventing, you know, bushes, thorns getting into their eyes. Beautiful. What are you looking at? Something caught her eyes, and that's why she's so inquisitive. How do they compare in size to the Rothschilds? They are the same. They are the same. It's only the pattern that's different, but size-wise, it's the same. About 1,500 to 1,700 kilos for a female, and up to 2,000 kilos for a male. They're very much the same. Look at that pattern. It's very much the same as the Rothschilds, but we won't be able to see the knees down. The Rothschilds has got white knees all the way down, but you are looking at the shapes, the figures of the pattern of their body. You see they look like jigsaw puzzles. That's what that's how they look. So beautiful. Nature is amazing, you know, how it can make that happen. See, that tight skin on their legs, so that they are created that way so that the blood pressure doesn't flow down towards the legs. Giraffes have got one of the highest blood pressures of all mammals, and they are supposed to distribute it equally towards all the body. If the legs had much meat and more veins, the blood would all flow towards the legs, which would lead to explosion, which could lead to internal bleeding, which could lead to death. So nature has created a giraffe with very tight skin and very few veins and meat on the legs, so that the blood can be directed to other parts of the body, especially towards the head. Yeah, that is why they have thin legs. Looks like those two have caught something in their sight. Sorry, you broke down there. I didn't hear you. If you could please repeat the question. Shrivant, you ask if they are threatened in Kenya. Their numbers is stable. Their numbers is stable. Other parts, I would answer you differently. Other parts where there's human habitation within where they are threatened. Here in the Masai Mara, the numbers are very, very stable. They are looking at something. I'm going to try and find out what it is. Yeah, nothing much to worry about. It's a hyena, but it's a long ways out there. So I'll leave them to enjoy their browse. And the best place to see giraffes, according to me, you go to Sulu's Game Reserve in Tanzania and you'll see so many. I will stick around with these guys a little bit. I'll link you back to Steve. I think he's still with Stingana. Enjoy.
Just splendid animals, aren't they? Well, we have spotted for you a beautiful Sabota lark. He's got a very characteristic white facial streak across his face. Oh, no. And he's gone. He's been playing so nicely for us there. He's been sitting on top of the tree, singing his heart out. Now, the Sabota lark is a very, very well-known mimic. And he was mimicking a blue waxbill. He was mimicking a rattling testicular. He was even mimicking a Morocco sunbird. And it's so awesome to see these songbirds putting in all these funny calls and jumbles. And it's one of those birds that really does confuse the new time birders, because he just makes so many noises. Like, I'm not sure what that is. It sounds like something I know. Generally, they'll sit on top of a very, very sort of conspicuous branch like that, out in the open, very well camouflaged, but with that very nice facial streak. Let me show you. Here's a photo. Sorry, I had it open a moment ago, and then my alarm decided to go off. Oopsie, that's not the one. It's a Sabota lark. Let's just turn it for you. There we go. Beautiful, beautiful bird. Quite nondescript, if you would. That bold markings on the face, very brown and mottled, very sort of lark-like beak. The lark-like beak, it's got sort of decurved slightly, and a very, very classic mimic. If you find a bird that's sitting on top of a tree, he looks quite brown, and he's making all sorts of weird sounds, you could be almost certain it is this guy. He mimics so many different species. I've even heard them mimicking a go-away bird and a squirrel. That was quite something. I was very confused as to what was going on. But they're always sitting quite high in the open on top of a branch, because when you camouflage like that, your mates can't see you. So they stand out there to go, look at me, and then they sing and they speak all of the languages that they've learnt, because the more languages they learn, the longer they've been around and the more attractive they are to the female. Just like, and I've said this before, like if I started speaking French and Italian and Spanish, the ladies all think, well, how traveled is this gentleman? It's exactly the same story. They learn all of these little phrases and they put them into one jumbled bird song, just to make it really, really more elaborate and to show the females how long they've been around. Look at how much I've learnt. So one of those marvelous things of mimics is to elaborate their bird song. And obviously their coloration is not there to make them camouflaged when they're not breeding, but how do the birds see them if they are so camouflaged? Because they need to sing to show themselves. And well, unless we track them or unless we hear them calling, leopards are also very, very hard to find.
So you can see that Tingana has just changed the side. Now he's sleeping from the other side. You can see that too much food in the stomach is irritating him at the moment. So when he is around here, the chances of him to go and drink by the Galago pen or the Viotella pen, they're very much high. These areas where we are, I didn't see any of the potholes here full of water. So this afternoon, possibilities of Tingana to move from here much more towards the Galago pen, they are very much high. Also, the chances of him catching something this afternoon are very high, because the distance between where he is and where I saw the impalas, I'm seeing them very far, it's just about 500 meters. So I think 500 meters is not a big distance. Those impalas might move, feeding, coming much more up this side. The stomach is full, yes, but he can always take a chance. can see those kind of flies there. These days, there's quite a lot of things irritating ears and the eyes. The stingless bees are also giving me problems these days. So you can see the whiskers. They are now lying against the side of the mouth on this leopard. So when the head is up, you will see the whiskers. They will come to the side. So now it's in a very relaxed position. Karen, Tingana is still my favorite leopard. And all I am missing the most is to hear him sowing. I haven't heard Tingana sowing for quite a long time. So it's quite a very nice sound. Every time he's sowing, I get very much excited. So I love Tingana a lot. So I don't think any of these leopards will separate that kind of interest. You can see that when you are coming from the back, if you look at the top side of the body, it's much more dark and much more golden. If you come from the back to see him, it's not easy. But if you come from the other side, the underparts is much more bright. So here, the lines underneath the stomach, you can see that it is much more bright. So animals from that side can be able to spot him, but animals coming from the back, it won't be easy for them to detect him here. So you can see the leopard has got very short legs. You can see the legs are not that very much long. So they are very much short and they are designed and suitable for climbing these trees. So they can be able to lift something big and be able to take it up to a tree. So that is not a problem to this kind of animals. So now it's time for them to conserve energy so that they can use this energy during the dark. So we want to see him nicely, but we also have to accept that he is doing much of his activities at night. Now we are just lucky sometimes to see them going up and down, but mostly they are highly active at night. So they need time to rest, time to conserve energy so that they can walk long distances at night and patrol their territory and also go for hunting. So while we are waiting for Tingana to show us his next action, let's cross over to Jamie.
I'm hoping that we do actually hear Tingana soar now that he's back in the central part of his territory. Tristan and I have been commenting for a few days that we're actually quite worried about Tingana. Tristan said he didn't look fantastic when he was busy having a fish meal, a meal of fish around Chitwa Dam, and we haven't heard him calling. We used to hear him calling almost every second day, and now all of a sudden, oh, excuse me. Now all of a sudden he's gone very quiet, unlike me, who's babbling and sneezing at the same time. Hopefully he decides to start calling again. I've been a little bit concerned that he's getting a little long in the tooth. Speaking about being long in the tooth, we have lots of long teeth behind us. All of these animals, of course, died of natural causes. We are not in any way making a display out of bones that have been in any way injured by people. Now, That was a really tenuous connection, but we're going to make it work because Ebony would like to know whether or not anything eats the bones outside here, or in fact bones in general. Lots of things do eat bones. The most obvious being the spotted hyenas, which have done their best to chew their way through the elephant skull. Fortunately, they can't get attached to our baboon or leopard skulls because these are locked up nice and tight and safe away from their jaws. And keen among you might even have noticed a hornbill fly past. That was very cool. So the way that ties into the discussion that we're having is the surprising effects of animals not reaching the same range as they once used to have. Hyenas crunch bones. They're the only thing really capable of chewing through bones larger than things like phalanges or perhaps the soft bones of a fetus or a young animal. Leopards and lions eat bones, but they don't chew on the older bones and they don't crush them. Now, because hyenas no longer have the same range that they used to, due of course to their unwelcomed presence on things like farms, what that's meant for the vulture population is that the vultures can no longer pick up shards of bone as left behind by the hyenas. And there are people who've suggested a theory as to why vulture numbers are decreasing in the way that they are, and that's because they're not getting the calcium that they need to lay solid eggs, which of course would then keep the chicks nice and safe. So their chicks are not actually making it to the point that they hatch. Funny little way that everything is connected to everything else. One of the big reasons that vultures and hyenas are killed is due to poisoned carcasses, which is very, very sad indeed. And we'll explain a little bit about that in a moment. April wants to know whether or not this large one is a baboon. It is, April. Well done. Have a look at those canines, and you can really get an idea as to just how dangerous a baboon actually is. Canines longer than a leopard's, and just as powerful, with jaws just as powerful, and you understand why leopards even are a little bit afraid of baboons. They can do some serious damage. They can also be very dangerous to people in situations where they have come to associate people with food, which almost invariably results in the death of the animal. So don't feed baboons, don't feed hyenas if you go to the Kruger camps. Don't throw your chopped bones over the fence and give them to the scavenging hyenas. It's a terrible idea. It teaches them all sorts of bad habits and invariably hurts the animal more than the joy that you get out of seeing some animal that you have fed that didn't need your food at all. Now, Jason says that there are some mean-looking teeth to those baboons. Aren't you all completely fascinated by the fact that, there's a recent study that's come out that the wild dogs in Mana pools actually have learnt to target baboons. There's a little vervet monkey that's off to the left there. That is a nice little comparison. There you go. So that's the baboon, and then its much smaller cousin, the vervet monkey, also with considerable teeth. That one looks thoroughly creepy, actually. So speaking of wild dogs, which is where I was planning on taking this conversation, there are a number of different projects. Of course, as you know, they are the second most endangered predator in Africa, the most endangered being the Ethiopian wolf or the red wolf. It's got a couple of different names. There are very few wild dogs left on our planet, and it's up to us to conserve them. Organizations like the Endangered Wildlife Trust do their best, but it's a very difficult situation with dogs. Dogs need massive areas of land to run about in. Again, that discussion about fences plays a role here. They cannot move across their natural ranges as they once did. Dogs have been found all the way up close to the top of Kilimanjaro. That's how far they're very, very adaptable creatures, but they're incredibly susceptible to diseases. Now, in areas surrounding us, both here and in the Masai Mara, of course, there are loads of stray dogs. So there's a whole holistic approach to conservation that includes the members of the community, most importantly, because they really are the most essential part of conserving an area. And there are massive amounts of vaccination programs to ensure that the stray dogs don't spread canine distemper and rabies. And of course, as soon as you think about rabies, the first thing we think about is young Sindile and the situation that played out there, the leopard that caught the stray dog that made its way in here. Dog later turned out to have rabies, and Sindile was put in quarantine for an extended period of time. That is the least ideal way that scenario could have played out. The ideal is to keep dogs out, but that's almost impossible. And obviously keep them vaccinated. So there are masses of programs out wherever you happen to be around conservation areas where people are vaccinating the feral dogs or the stray dogs and people's pet dogs as well. Because once those diseases take hold in wild dogs, the whole pack goes down. And the same applies to jackal. The Hoedspruit area has very few jackal left, thanks to the rabies outbreak that killed an entire pack of dogs not far from Hoedspruit itself, and those populations are just beginning to recover. There's plenty involved. Conservation is a very big heading, and it's a very, very complex topic, and I've enjoyed speaking about it. It's quite enjoyable to get into the meat and the bare bones, of a conversation like this, and to actually get a little bit of discussion going and some different opinions as well. Because there are different opinions and they're all equally valid. The trick is to try, I guess, and keep the emotions contained around a situation like this. Now, what we're going to do is send you across to Stivovo. I don't know what happened to his lion tracking. Possibly wasn't successful, but I'm sure he's had a delightful morning out there.
Well, Jamie is giving some wonderful topics this morning. It has been a magnificently wonderful topic on conservation. I think I might need to go back and watch it all, because it sounds like some really interesting points were brought forward. Well, for those of you who didn't know, we've got a rehearsal this evening for SABC, so we've been trying very hard to find some of our characters. Obviously with Sydney finding Tingana, I've been trying really hard, and I think we've probably covered the entire area this morning. Trying one last go around Gallagher and then back around Voyatela Pan to see if the little Chief Hosana can maybe be found, and maybe a drag mark into a tree with an impala. How good would that be? Because as Sydney says, with the weather like this, very good chance that whoever we find is going to move. So what happens when it's cool, nice and cool? No chance leopards are going to stay in the same place generally, unless they've got some food. The Evoker male is an exception yesterday. He stayed in the same place all day long, even though it rained and was relatively cool for a majority of the day. Just goes to show the laziness that is a male lion. Oopsie. There's just one tree on this road that always catches the aerial. Hello, Zach. Which animal in Africa has the highest survival rate? Well, that is a really good question. Sure. You really now made me think. Sure, offhand, I can't give you an answer right now. Which animal in Africa has got the highest survival rate? We're probably going to have to ask Jamie this question as well. It's a very good question. Here we are at Gallagher. While I ponder the survival rate, that's probably a really good question. The problem is that, you know, taking in all the competition factors and taking in all the human interference factors. Sure, Zach. Such an interesting question for this time of the morning. And here is Gallagher watering hole, a favorite area for many of our animals to come and have a drink. It is pumped water. This is not a natural pan. It's created, man-made and pumped, and so very, very nice and clean. And essentially, because we have put fences up around the Kruger Park, we need to also provide water. The migration has been thwarted and animals can't leave. So they can move to other areas, but they also need water. So ideally, and in most areas within the Kruger Park and the private reserves around, you've got sort of watering holes near and about sort of the lodges and the camps, obviously for the purpose of ecotourism as well. And no doubt this is one of those. Zach, Well, Zach, you've stumped me there. I'm really going to have to think hard about that. Really, Senzo's laughing at me. Senzo's laughing at me. Senzo, what is your answer then to the highest survival rate in Africa? Okay, so some people are guessing termites. Now, what I'd have to say about termites is that millions of them die all the time. So I don't think termites... Elephants have probably got a very, very high success rate. Definitely in the Kruger National Park. That's one of the reasons behind why they've changed their policies on elephants, is because their survival rate is so high. The youngsters aren't dying. I know it sounds very sad for me to say that right now, but if the adults take a very long time to die because they live to old age, and the youngsters aren't dying because of the proximity of watering holes, then probably a very good answer is elephant. But obviously their population grows quite slowly, but they don't really perish because of the availability of water. So my answer would probably be elephants. So thank you to all of those of you out there that have answered that. Elephants also aren't picked off very easily by predators, and the juveniles definitely do very well. Umka's saying tortoises. Well, tortoises do rather well, but a lot of the youngsters get eaten, and also a lot of them get killed in fire. So tortoises I wouldn't think is the answer. There's just too many natural predators for tortoises. I mean, honey badgers, we've seen just last year alone, we saw live on camera one being eaten by the Nkuhuma Pride, and Sydney right at the end of the year got one being eaten by... Okay, well, we're going to quickly go across to Jamie, who's going to give us the correct answer.
Holy crap. Oof, complex question that, in terms of what animal has the highest survival rate. I'm very glad you didn't catch the word I just said, because I was listening to the elephants on the other side of quarantine clearings. I hope you didn't catch the word I just said. It wasn't too bad, but they're very, very upset. Goody. Thanks, Kirst. Kirst says you caught me. I apologize. I was discussing the incredibly upset elephants that are somewhere on the other side of quarantine, probably being chased around by a large male elephant. Right, well, that's my train of thought derailed. What were we talking about? Oh, yes. We were talking about highest survival rate of an animal in Africa. Oh, that is a very difficult question. Naturally, in terms of mammals, you're probably looking at it right here. This is not the best example because it's dead. But you're probably looking at the animal with one of the highest survival rates. An elephant invests an immense amount in its offspring. It has one baby at a time. That baby, from the moment it's born, is unlikely to be killed by predators. Incredibly unlikely. Once it reaches adulthood, again, it is incredibly, incredibly unlikely to be killed by natural causes. Even an elephant like this that was killed in a fight with an elephant bull, that's a very, I mean, how often has that happened on our live safaris? We're out here every day, twice a day, and this was a first for us. So in terms of mammals, you're probably looking at the one with the highest survival rate if you take human beings out of the equation, which unfortunately we simply cannot do. Termites is a good answer. What are we defining survival rate as? From the moment that the baby is born or the eggs are laid until it reaches its natural lifespan? Termites is a good answer. But how much of a dent in the population do aardvarks make? Not a very big one. Jeepers, it's a difficult question. Ants? Pangolins eat ants. Everything eats something else. I'm inclined to say it's probably an insect, but it's difficult because then you're looking at an animal with a very high population already, an established high population. There are loads of impala. There's probably 100,000, 200,000 impala in the greater Kruger system alone, but they definitely don't have the highest survival rate. Quickly, off you go across to Sydney. Tingana's up and about. Let's see what he's doing.
I'll talk very fast about you.
Okay, for the ending, you need to...
So now I am still with the Duke of Duma, and I've got very, 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 very good sighting here. And Tingana is lying down there, not interested in us because I have got one of the new camera operators who is still learning by the name of Bukamuso. Bukamuso, he speaks Tswana. And I've just realized today that here by World Earth, in terms of the cultural and traditional practice, we are so diverse. Sydney speaks Venda, Bukamuso speaks Tswana, Senzo speaks Zulu, and Koli speaks Ndebel, and we've got Jandre here who speaks English, Conrad who speaks African. So we are very much diverse, and Tingana who speaks Leopards. So you can see that by the camp here, there's different languages at the moment. So Tingana, I'm sure, is going to be here for the rest of the day. I'll come and check him later on. And I can promise you it has been an ornament having you as part of our viewers today. It was a lovely morning punctuated with beautiful sightings such as the one we are having now and other sightings in the Masai Mara. And again, thank you very, very much for all your questions and comments. Let's meet again this afternoon. We will be back again for a good and interesting game drive.